Irish sky, old stories hit high, tales of struggle and strife. Keep your head in the fight. Broken bones in the street, ain't no place for the weak. From the land of the brave, where the words cut deep. Coming next on the air now, feel the despair. Generation X, shout out, shattered somewhere. Rising up from the dark with a fire and spark. Rage and passion combined to leave a lasting mark. Coming next, shouting loud, voices from the crowd. Through the mist of...
Welcome to Common X. I'm Ian, here with Jarrett, and today we're joined by Paul Kevin Curtis, whose unbelievable story took him from Elvis impersonation to a Netflix documentary and even a brush with being wrongfully accused of sending rice and lace letters to President Obama. Jarrett, you've seen the doc, The Kings of Tupelo, a Southern crime saga? Wild, twisted, disoriented. I mean, Kevin, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Tell us about your early days. How did you end up being an Elvis impersonator and a janitor in Tupelo? Tell our audience this unique story.
Well, how dare you refer to me as an Elvis impersonator? I'm an Elvis tribute artist.
Exactly.
You know,
Come on, Ian.
Yeah, that's do your homework, Ian. It's so funny when you go to these Elvis festivals and these contests they have worldwide. You say Elvis impersonator and their face will turn red and they'll call in security and they'll just literally just demonize you. Like, I was never an Elvis impersonator. I'm an Elvis tribute artist. There's a difference.
Those are fighting
you know
words,
what?
huh?
The thing is, when I got framed and they called me an Elvis impersonator worldwide, literally the whole world said, oh, he's a janitor and an Elvis impersonator. So I could not call 16,000 newspapers and say, first of all, I've never been a janitor. I'm a business owner. I own a commercial cleaning business. Secondly, I've never allowed anyone to publish me as an Elvis impersonator. I do a tribute act where I impersonate 50 of the biggest legends in the entire history from the past and the present. Big difference than I just put on some fake sideburns and put on a wig and go out. Oh, well,
Right?
Yeah. I do Kermit. I do Kermit the Frog better than Elvis, but you didn't see the paper say a Kermit the Frog impersonator tried to kill both Obama and Tooth sitting. It's like, hi ho, does nobody see me? Hi ho, why are there so many songs about rainbow? No one. I do so many voices, 75 voices. And they had to zero in on Elvis impersonator. So, yes, I do Elvis tribute shows since I was 10 years old, won my first contest in Natchez, Mississippi at the Natchez Adams County Territory Fairground, which was every year. I went to the fair every year with my mom. And that year in 1977, the year Elvis passed away, they had a contest, a talent contest. And my mom said, oh, we've got to get you some bell bottoms and a silk or satin shirt and turn the collar up. You've got to do Elvis for Mama. You've got to do Elvis. So I was nervous. I had never performed anywhere but church. My dad was a preacher, and we went to the Assembly of God. He traveled around with Jimmy Swaggart and did revivals. And that's the only place I was subjected to music. So I sat in my little living room. My dad gave me a guitar amp and a 1966 microphone, Electro Voice. And it's the kind that if there's any moisture in the air and your lips touch the end of it, you get zapped. So wow. I still have it. It's like right over here somewhere on the desk. I still have that microphone. So, I entered it and I sang Teddy Bear and Don't Be Cruel. And my mom was just, oh, this is it. This is going to be a whole life of Elvis shows. He's going to make Mama proud and buy me a Graceland. And so at 10 years of age, I promised my mother, I'm going to buy you a Graceland when I make all my money. And just like Elvis, I'm going to make you proud. So really, I've just started admitting lately to myself and to people, every show I did was for my mother. So when my mother died in my arms, May the 17th, here in my house, this year, she took her last breath and I put a stethoscope on her heart and it just do. And I heard it slowing down and I looked around, I looked at the nurses. I said, she's about to go. And they're like, well, why did you grab the stethoscope? How did you know? And I said, I don't know. I just knew. And I said, Mom, just look at me with those beautiful Elizabeth Taylor eyes one more time, because she had not opened her eyes in 2 days, had not spoken in 2 days. And she just opened her eyes wide, and her heart went, and then she passed right in my arms.
Oh, wow.
And somebody in the room took a photo of me just sobbing, collapsing in her arms, and her passed away. So, and it got real strange. The hospice nurse called 911, which is against protocol, and a whole team of police officers showed up at the house, came through the house without me letting them in. They just opened the door and came through. I'm like, what are you doing here? And police just ran through where is she? Where is she? I'm like, are you talking about my mother? Like, she just died in my arms 30 minutes ago. What are you doing? And police went to the back and they picked up my security surveillance camera that was pointed right at my mother, and they turned it over. And on audio, I picked up my phone and I activated the cameras. I have like 10 cameras outside and inside. So I activated them, and I heard one officer say, take a picture of the medication and take a picture of her dead body. And I didn't know that until later, after I chewed a piece of their ass out outside. 5 police officers were gathered around me, and they're all like, oh, I saw Kings of Tupelo. Can I shake your hand, Mr. Curtis? And I go, well, if you saw Kings of Tupelo, you know I hate corrupt cops. Why in the hell are you here at this house when my mother just died in my arms? So I'm still being harassed by police officers. It was like they wanted to know, where does Casey live? Where does the Elvis go? See, nobody, I've been hiding out since the doc dropped in December of 24. Nobody in the world knows where I am. I dropped off the radar. And that was, I did that because I wanted to do that. I knew it was going to get crazy. I couldn't leave the house without people stopping, taking pictures, trying to get a selfie, get my autograph at the bank. 50 people gathered around me at the bank just trying to get $100 withdrawal. But back to my childhood, everything was for my mother. Every talent show, she entered me in probably 75 talent shows before I was 15 years old. And just a whole house full of trophies and medals and ribbons. And I've still got like my first trophy from the Natchez Adams County Fair up on the fireplace mantle. Like my first 10 trophies are up there. A lot of them burned in a fire. My mom's house burned down. My house was burned to the ground after I filed a $16 million lawsuit against the Tupelo Hospital. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Like, oh, maybe it's a coincidence, but just 6 days before my home was burned to the ground, a strange man called me, and he sounded like that guy in the documentary, the FBI guy. He had that low voice, kind of like Rocky, He's like, it was 11 o'clock at night. He's like, Mr. Curtis, if you don't stop talking about the body parts, something's going to happen to one of your elfin children. Do you understand? And it was so crystal clear, and it's sketched in my memory to this day exactly how he sounded. And he hung up the phone. I went straight to the attorney in Tupelo, Mississippi. I told him, I said, it shows the phone number. I tracked it to a payphone, and he's smiling at me with his confident smile, like, oh, so you're an investigator now, Paul? And I'm like, no, I just want to know who just threatened to murder my children if I don't shut up about the body parts. And so my life has been a roller coaster. This kid that starts talent shows, and it went national. I won national competitions just as Elvis. And so everyone at school called me Elvis. All my friends called me Elvis. Growing up, my mother didn't call me Elvis. That would have been weird. But before every contest, my mom would say, now you get out there and you shake that leg and you wiggle around and you curl that lip and you make mama proud. And so it was just etched in my mind. I've got to win, and I've got to buy that Graceland. And so when they wheeled my mother into the house here in May, my brother sent her to hospice in Tupelo. We get on the internet, we're Googling the sanctuary, and all of a sudden we see Steve Holland directory of treasury at the sanctuary. I run up there and jerk my mother out of hospice and say, I don't want my mother anywhere around the Mississippi undertaker. And like at this point, I've been a gentleman for the past 10 years about Mr. Holland. I never trash talked him. I never went on podcasts. I never did interviews. I never got on the internet and trashed him. It was my opponent, the karate instructor, Dusky, who trashed him and called him a homosexual, called him everything but a dead white man. I mean, this guy, they hated each other. And I kept wondering why do they hate each other? Why is the guy that works for my brother and my ex-wife all of a sudden decided to become a politician? Why is he becoming a politician? Why does he hate me? Why is he Googling everything about me? Why did he ask my ex-wife, what was it like being married to Kevin Curtis all those years? What kind of father was he? Like, she told me this years after the fact. So I went up to New York City. I did the Katie Couric show at like 7 a.m. I'm up there getting makeup on, and I've got the Today Show after that, Good Morning America, Inside Edition, right after I was released from federal prison from being accused of trying to murder Obama, Senator Roger Wicker, and a judge, Sadie Holland, who is the mother of the Mississippi Undertaker,
right.
which
that
I
was
put
the judge
all
that you had
of these
in your case too, wasn't it?
The judge that sentenced me to prison after the assistant DA pulled the gun on me after I fired him.
Yeah.
People want to talk about, oh, Kevin must have had a hot temper, a hot head. Kevin got jealous that he was talking to his wife. It wasn't anything like that. When I am in business mode, and music mode is my business mode. So whether I was in my commercial cleaning business mode in a suit or in my cleaning fatigues, I was always professional. I was always ethical. I was always treating people like I wish to be treated. I trained my employees like I want to be trained. I would tell employees when I hired them, I will teach you in 1 week how to start your own cleaning business. And my wife would get angry at me. What are you doing? You want them to work for us and make us money so we can relax and take vacations. Why are you teaching everybody we hire how to? I said, that's the American dreams. And that's what Tony Robbins would do. And she would kind of laugh, but she wasn't really funny to her. She wanted that money coming in. So, Dusky, Holland, David Daniels, they're all in this clique together in this little monopoly set up in Northeast Mississippi. Well, I told the producers of Netflix, I said, look, don't be surprised if there are some suicides and strange deaths after this doc is released. And they laugh and go, that's crazy, man. Like, you're bananas, Kevin. It's exact words. One of the producers said, you're bananas. Well, within a couple of months, on my mother's birthday, the assistant DA shot himself in the head in his front yard while I'm in Tupelo setting up my music equipment to sing to my mother on her birthday. And in the documentary, my mother says, if the last thing I'm going to do is get David Lee Daniels for what he did to my son, putting my son in prison when he was drunk, he pulled a gun on my unarmed son. And see, I filed a bar complaint, and the bar complaint was thrown right out, uninvestigated by the Mississippi Bar Association, and a trial was set forth. My attorney dropped out on the morning of the trial and said, I'm sorry, Kevin, I have a conflict of interest with the district attorney and the assistant DA, David Lee Daniels, that allegedly pulled the gun on you while he was intoxicated on May the 23rd. I said, no, you can't drop out. I mean, this trial is going on this morning at 9:00. It's 7:00 in the morning. He's calling at my house. So he didn't show up. They forced me to be my own representation. And you should have seen me. You would have been really proud. You don't even know me, but you would have been like, damn, he's Perry Mason. Like, and literally in the middle, 7 hours into the trial, I'm cross-examining the witnesses. My ex-wife is now my ex-wife. She was my wife then. I'm cross-examining my brother, Pat Raspberry, the executive director of the Tupelo Visitors Bureau, who put together the band and hired David Daniels. I didn't even know he was an assistant DA when he backed me. Like, he's playing guitar and he's off rhythm. He's playing the wrong chords. And everyone was telling me, oh, he's been playing music for 50 years. He'll do a good job for your Double Trouble show. But I learned after watching the tapes of the first debut Double Trouble, he played every note right on my brother's segment of the Vegas show. But on the first segment, me performing the tribute to Elvis in the 50s, he's playing G when everyone else is in A. He's playing B minor when everyone else is on C. And he purposely sabotaged or tried to sabotage my show. But what he doesn't understand, I had 1,200 live performances under my belt. You're not going to mess me up. You can put your guitar down and grab a saxophone if you've never even played. You're not going to screw me up. That's how seasoned it. I'm not trying to brag or impress you, but impress upon you that when you start at the age of 10 and you join your first live band at 14 and you've done 150 shows before you're 15, by the time you're 32, nothing really is going to derail you. The electricity can go out. I promise you the show will go on. David hated me. I don't know why. To this day, I don't know why. But I never in a million years thought he would watch Kings of Tupelo. He would accept to be interviewed, and then he would blow his brains out on my mother's birthday. You can't make this stuff up. And I put in writing 2 years ago, do not be surprised if there are suicides. There's also another suicide with a fellow I worked with at the hospital, and he's the first person I showed the severed head to on December the 17th of 1999 when I discovered all the body parts. I picked the head up out of the freezer portion of the refrigerator, and I said, look, Michael, like this man was alive 2 days ago. I spoke to him and his family. They recognized me from the WTVA morning show. They were asking me to sing to them in the ER. Like this guy had stomach cramps. Now his head is in the refrigerator wrapped in plastic with barcodes. And Michael's eyes were popping out of his head. And he looks at me, and we were friends. We used to go out and party. We'd go to a place called Bogart's in Tupelo, and I'd jump up on stage and play the guitar with the band. In fact, the host of the morning show, Kay Bain, her daughter was the head of the band. Her and Tony Bain were the head of the rock band. And me and Michael hung out. So he never spoke to me again after I showed him the severed head and all the severed body parts. He just looked and he's like, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see that. I ran into him at Bed Bath & Beyond 3 years later, and he just wouldn't even speak to me. I'm like, hey, Michael, man, I haven't seen you since they threw me out and banned me from the hospital. They banned me for life. I'm like, you ever wonder why they did that, Mike? And he's like, his eyes got big. He was with his girlfriend. He's like, I don't really want to talk about it. But they found him hanging in his apartment like 3 months after I was framed in the presidential assassination plot. You can't make this stuff up.
Man, that's crazy. How did you?
Go ahead.
How was the organ trafficking theory sparked from the frozen head incident? If you don't mind me asking.
Sure. When I discovered it, I had never in my life. First of all, I wasn't a conspiracy theorist. I wasn't even a conspiracy realist at the time. I didn't know about chemtrails in the sky, geoengineering, 5G. I didn't know about organ harvesting on the black market. I had a wife, 4 children, a mortgage, 5 cars in the driveway, living the American dream, 32 years old. I didn't know the conspiracies existed. It wasn't on my radar in life. So I opened up the refrigerator looking for a Dr. Pepper, some tea or water, anything. I was dehydrated, been in there hours, and it was no ventilation. It was 98 degrees in there. I was sweating profusely, cleaning up blood, guts, and bone and brain fragments from a backed up drainage system. And I just look at it, and I'm looking, and I open up the freezer part, and I see this clear through the plastic, this guy, and I go, I don't forget a face. They used to call me the master of impressions. When Kevin Curtis sees a face, when he hears a noise, he can nail it. Like he can be that voice. He can look like that face. He'll never forget that face. And I don't. I have a memory like that. I can hear a song once or twice, and I'll get up on stage the next day, never look at the words, know the song, photographic memory. So I'm looking at this man and I'm like, oh my God, I spoke to him and his sister-in-law and his brother Wednesday night. Oh my God. In the ER, I was buffing the floors and they stopped me and said, we saw you on the morning show. Our mother loves you. She got a purple teddy bear at a festival a couple of years ago that you threw out and she sleeps with it every night. I'm like, that's the sweetest thing I ever heard. 2 days later, this man's dead in the freezer. His head's in the freezer. So you think I'm not going to question that? I walked out of there, my face is white as a ghost, and I know because there's a restroom right outside the morgue, and I opened the door because I almost puked, and I look in the mirror, and I didn't even look like myself, and like the temples, like you could see my heartbeat in my temples, like boom, 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 and my heart was racing. It's like a horror movie, and there were arms and legs and feet and hands, full legs, thighs, femur bones, feet. Oh my God, women, little children. I saw a foot with painted toenails. I saw a little girl's hand. This stuff freaked me out. So I walk right out. There's a doctor walking with some files toward radiology. I said, doctor. And he said, yes. I said, and you're not supposed to speak to doctors if you're into the floor care maintenance. And I was over
staff.
the entire. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He
How
looked
dare
at
you
me
talk
like,
to us?
how dare you are so beneath me? Not even the nurses talk to me. But here's the clicker here. This is great. He recognizes me as the Elvis guy who performed a week before Elvis on Ice at the Tupelo Bancorp South Coliseum. 20,000 people were there, and I was on in my jumpsuit doing Vegas Elvis on ice skates, and I still have footage of that. They let me leave the hospital, not even clock out against the law, and put on my Elvis suit, skate around singing Suspicious Minds, you know, and Teddy Bear and Don't Be Cruel on Ice, throwing out 50 teddy bears to 20,000 people, and then put my fatigues back on for cleaning and go right back into the hospital. And then the news comes on WTVA and Elvis on Ice, Kevin Curtis performs a tribute. And all of my coworkers are going, what the hell? Hey, when did he leave? And how come Elvis gets to leave the building and we don't? You know, so immediately you have animosity, you know. So all of that was brewing, and I didn't know anything about organ harvesting. I never heard of it. So I asked the doctor, and he looks at me like he just saw the ghost of Elvis swallow 25 jelly donuts. Well, I said, I'm just curious, sir. I know it's a strange question. He said, aren't you the Elvis guy at Bancorp South? I just saw you at the hockey games. And so I said, yes, that's me. He goes, he writes down something. He goes, I didn't know your name was Paul. And he saw my name tag. It said Paul, NMMC, North Mississippi Medical Center. So he writes something down on a piece of paper. He looks at me real strange and says, I'll get back with you later, Paul. And he takes the files on to the head of radiology. Well, after that, I knew I had discovered something I wasn't supposed to see. And it was something so serious that all of security in the entire hospital came down to the ground floor and started watching me with their hands on their guns. They were videotaping me. And the reason I know they were videotaping me is because for the first time in 2 years of employment there, I'm walking under there. They have hundreds of surveillance cameras in the bubbles. And every time I'd walk by, it went zzz, zzz. And I'd look up and see the camera zoom out, zoom in, and I knew. So I went down to security. Her name was Sheila Moore. It was the head of security, not the director, but the head, the supervisor. And we knew each other well. And I said, Sheila, like, are you guys watching me? And she said, what are you, a psychic? And she leans forward and says, listen, Kevin, I'm going to tell you something. Do not repeat this. I go, what? She said, you see these cameras behind me? And there were like 100, not cameras, monitors, 100 monitors behind. And I posted photos of this on Facebook in the past of this exact area. And she said, I was asked by Kenneth Wheeler, the head of security, the director, to put in the VHS tapes and all these computers and watch your every move until you leave the hospital. And I go, what the hell? I said, Sheila, I found a man's severed head and about 40 body parts wrapped in plastic. She goes, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I go, I mean, I'm just telling you the truth. And so I told her, and then I went back and I got another scrubber to extract and lay down some sealer because I had already cleaned up all the blood, guts, and bone fragments that washed up out of the autopsy drain system. And I was just going to, I finished my job, but still, I just had that. So I went back to radiology with the scrubber, and I go, Lisa, Wendy, Amy, you guys come here to the morgue, and they go, what is it, Elvis? And I guess I got to show you something. It's freaked me out. They all leave their post, all four of them, including the head of radiology, Rhonda Potts. Rhonda Potts, Potts. That was her name. And she runs in there and she's looking, she goes, what? And I open up the refrigerator and they just stand there and they go like this. And they go, holy, you know what? We don't want to get censored. And they're all eyes are bulging. And I open the freezer and I pick up this man's head that I talked to 2 days before. And I said, I met this man and his brother and his sister-in-law Wednesday night. Like I met them. I sang a few notes to some Elvis songs and they were chuckling, not the guy with stomach cramps. He wasn't really, chuckling and laughing. He was in severe pain. I found out later he had like his pancreas exploded. Somebody in the ER told me that little piece of information. They weren't supposed to, but they did. They trusted me. So they literally run as fast as they can back to their desks behind radiology. And here comes security whispering to them, talking to them. They never spoke to me again. The next day I was called in to the CEO of the entire hospital, Dr. Jeff Barber. Never met him in my life, never heard of him, didn't know they had a big giant picture on the wall of him. He was like, he had an office like the president of the United States. And there was like crystals everywhere, trophies. And I'm like, wow, this is like the president's office. And he kind of laughed and he said, sit down, Mr. Curtis. And long story short, he said, you appreciate your employment here at the North Mississippi Medical Center, don't you, Mr. Curtis? And I said, well, sure I do, sir. What's your name? He said, I'm Dr. Jeff Barber, the CEO of this facility. I go, oh, I'm Kevin Curtis. Nice to meet you. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were Paul. And I go by Kevin. Everyone calls me, Paul with like business, checks, tax, when it's tax time. But everyone in my life has called me Kevin, so just call me Kevin, sir. He goes, okay, Kevin, you appreciate all of the wonderful opportunities we've offered you here, right? I mean, you've got to leave the hospital at will. We don't allow that with everyone. You get special privileges because you own your own business. And we respect your knowledge, and you have cut costs by 30% in environmental services. I said, yeah, I know. They wrote me up in the newspaper about that, in the monthly newspaper that you all put out. I really appreciate it. It was a great article. And sir, Leah Thompson, the head nurse, she came to me last week and asked me to speak as a guest speaker for the 17th annual Caring Conference. And I said, why are you asking me, ma'am? I've never spoken in front of anybody. I'm just a singer and a cleaning business owner. And she goes, the reason I'm asking you, sir, is because everyone in ambassador services is talking about how great you are with people, how you hand out Tony Robbins tapes to people that are going through trials and tribulations, how you sit down in food court and talk to people going through divorces or breakups or losing their homes or their home just burned down, and you put together a fundraiser that you really care for people. I go, ma'am, that's the most wonderful things anybody ever said to me. I would be honored. She said, Dr. Patch Adams will be speaking right after you. So you're kind of his opener that night. So I go to my brother who has an insurance company, and I'm like, Jack, man, can I speak? Will you allow me to speak when you have that conference next week that you have every year where all your top producers come and you guys sit and talk about how many sales you made the strategies you use, getting in the door when you knock on a cold call door and say, "Hi, I'm Jack Curtis, and I would like to offer you the new Medicare supplement package that we have now. It'll outdo Blue Cross and Blue Shield." And I knew the whole pitch because I was working. I had worked for my brother for a year as an insurance agent, just like the karate instructor. So I knew the insurance business. My dad was in insurance for 45 years and retired from them, the same company that my brother was a branch manager. So Jack said, "Oh, yeah, come on in, man. Bring your video camera, get you some visual aids. Man, I'd love to see that." I did it. So I go there, I do my spiel, I bring a computer, I talk about garbage in, garbage out theory. What goes into your mind stays there. You can't just delete everything. So what you do and how you treat people is so important. And man, I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be the next Tony Robbins? This felt great. And this guy comes up to me and he's got tears coming down his eyes and he shakes my hand. He says, "I've only met you a couple of times, Kevin, but I haven't spoken to my son in about 3 years. I'm going to call him right now. You really hit me with this information. I've never heard it put this way." This guy's crying, a grown man, his tears in his, and he looked just like Chuck Norris. And I think he has done some stand-in commercial work, small commercials, as Chuck Norris, but looks exactly like him. His name was Bill Haddix. Matter of fact, I'll never forget it. I shook his hand. I think I ended up hugging him about 30 minutes later before he left the building. My brother walks up to me, shakes my hand, and said, "Well, Kevin, I'm very impressed. You may be the next motivational speaker. Zig Ziglar is what he said. That was his go-to guy."
Yeah.
But so guess what? I got fired and banned from the hospital right before the 17th annual carrying conference, but it was already put out. My name was distributed right next to Patch Adams. And guess who calls me on the phone? I should get up right now and get the letter from Patch Adams that he wrote me and mailed to my house. He called me on the phone. He's like, "Kevin, I just had to call you. This body parts thing, I've been looking into it. You have really opened up a can of worms." I posted the message from Patch Adams to my phone on YouTube. It's still there right now. You can go Google it and listen to it. And I have his letter to me right here to the right in an 11 by 14 frame on the wall. So I never got that opportunity to shake Patch Adams' hand, to speak to the people. It was 4,500 people in the audience.
Wow.
So they wanted to contain me, shut me up. They banned me for life. I am still presently banned, which is against my civil rights. Because what if I were to have a massive heart attack and I'm 3 blocks from the North Mississippi Medical Center and that's where they take me? What are they going to do? Use photo imagery recognition, face recognition, and go, "Oh my God, we fired him in 2000."
Yeah, we can't treat that guy.
Here's what a lot of people don't know. I'm gonna drop a secret truth bomb to you that not even Netflix knows. I didn't even tell them. When they fired me, the high-profile attorney that's never lost a case in his entire 35-year career, Jim Wade, who was personal friends with my brother Jack. Jack took me to his office. Kevin's gonna tell you what happened. He's got a hell of a story, Jim. Let's listen to it. He was fired and thrown out in handcuffs after 2 years of employment. Everybody loved him last week, but now he's the Antichrist. So Jim worked tirelessly for like 6 or 7, 8 weeks. He built a 15-inch file. He went to the hospital, interviewed people. He sent several other people that worked for him down there to investigate. When it was over, he called my wife and I into his office and he said, "I want you to sit down. I've got good news." And I go, "Well, that's good. That's good, because our home has burned to the ground and we're going to get a car repossessed and we have children to feed. And I have lost $42,000 in contracts in the last 2 weeks since I came to you." Okay. And so, I mean, shit was hitting the fan. when everybody heard Kevin Curtis is filing a lawsuit against the largest employer of the state, the money machine of Northeast Mississippi, it was over. It was over for me. My music career was over. I didn't know it. I didn't know I was going to have to change my name to Wes Hunter and pretend I'm one guy pretending to be 40 other guys on stage. I didn't know that was my future in the next 2 or 3 years, but it was. I lost everything. So Jim Wade said, you're going to both be millionaires, and I'm going to bring in some financial counselors and a banker to speak with you Friday. And I don't want to see you end in divorce because, what are you making? 60, 70, $80,000 a year between the both of you. And we're like, yeah, we're right at 80,000 right now. And I'm like, and not bad for a high school dropout, right, Mr. Wade? And he chuckles and laughs. And then he looks at me and he says, what is your IQ, Kevin? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been tested. He goes, I think it's up there. You would have been a great prosecutor. And I'm like, where did that come from? I'm just a singer and a business owner, like where did that come from? Little did I know he's going to sit there and stroke our egos and build our confidence that we're going to be multimillionaires. He said, I'm asking for $16 million, but here's the click. I don't want you to mention the body parts in the refrigerator. If it goes to trial, I may let you take the stand and you can talk about it then in front of a 12-member jury. But for now, we're asking for a settlement. And I goes, okay, that sounds fine with me. And I walk out. Well, I couldn't stop talking about the body parts. Everybody was calling me. Everybody was emailing me. Back then I had a Gateway 2000, I was on it every day. And everybody wanted to know, why are you not at the hospital? Why are you not at Lucky Star Industries? Why are you not at Tennessee Valley Authority? Why are you not at the 5 law offices you had cleaning? Why are you not at the 6 banks that you had for 8 years? Like, I lost 40 keys. So they put out I'm bipolar. I'm not mentally stable. I'm mentally ill. I'm crazy. So my question to everybody in year 2000, if I'm a nut job, why did 10 attorneys, bank presidents, owners of Fortune 2000 companies and Fortune 500 companies, multi-millionaires that own all the oil stations, why did they give me the key to their home, their offices, and trust me to come in whenever I wanted and do whatever and spend as long as I wanted in their homes and their businesses for almost 10 years? That's a good question. That's a logical question that's never been answered. Right. So maybe they're crazy. The people at the hospital are nut jobs and bipolar and they need medication. Why do they hire nut jobs to extract and clean up their floors and make their elevators shine and go to their homes and spend 2 hours in their homes cleaning their homes? They would go off out to Mexico or Brazil and I had the key to their home and they'd say, make yourself at home. You can use the hot tub, man. If you want to use the hot tub, go ahead, make yourself at home. We love you, man. When I sued the hospital, I lost all those friends and all those clients. So I found out the power and the magnitude that this hospital had a monopoly on 98% of every soul in the whole area.
Yeah, I mean, they're the big money maker in the area, right?
Is the largest of the area.
Right. And especially if they're, selling body parts on the black market.
Yeah, and how could I have ever proved that if I'm banned for life and I get a no trespassing note in the mail that says if you appear and you're seen on any property and then not just the hospital, but 4,000 other acres of land, even the mall, the local walking track where they have the county fair, like they own the land. They've bought all this property. So I would be told if you're seen, I said, I wrote a letter back to the hospital. I said, my wife and children go to the walking track 2 miles from the hospital every single week on the same day. We bring up pizza. We sit at the picnic table. We walk with our baby in the stroller. We play tennis. What? You're telling me I can never do that again because of what I discovered? They wrote me back a letter. We will not repeat ourselves. If you were ever seen on any property that we own, and yes, that includes the walking track, you will be arrested and you will pay a $5,000 fine. I'm like, oh my God. See,
Crazy.
they are federally owned and operated, fully tax exempt hospital. They pay no taxes. And get this, I had a contract for years with Franklin Collection Agency. So it was 5 miles from the hospital. So I would leave the hospital, go straight to Franklin Collection Agency. I would see papers laying out while I'm dusting, cleaning, and it had North Mississippi Medical Center emblem. So naturally, it caught my eye. I have a contract with them. So I'm cleaning, putting Windex, wiping the little mirrors and the telephones down, and I see litigation, lawsuits, like threat letters, like, we are going to take your home, Mrs. Smith. We are going to seize your land if you don't pay your doctor bills. And sometimes there would be a couple of women there that knew me, and they would like work late, and I would go in and they would be there, and they'd be, oh, I was just getting ready to leave. How you doing? Good to see you. And they would just openly tell me about the North Mississippi Medical Center seizing thousands of property, vehicles, and ruining people's lives. Well, here was my question. How can they do that if they're tax exempt, not for profit organization? If they're a charity organization, by law, I could have been an attorney because I've researched the law now. I had to after I went to prison 25 times. But I started studying the law and looking into it. And I discovered you cannot do that. If you are tax exempt and you are funded by the federal government, you can't seize legally. Guess what? A local attorney that I went to and took my files to, multimillionaire. He's associated with the movie The Insider with Russell Crowe and Al Pacino. I turned over my files and my research about body parts and everything. I said, this is what happened to me. I've lost everything. I got nothing. I don't know what I'm going to do. He takes the files, but he doesn't agree to represent me. So I start Googling a month or two later, and I'm Googling North Mississippi Medical Center, organ harvesting, body parts, severed head, this and that. And all of a sudden, a lawsuit pops up. I'm not going to say the attorney's name because he's been through enough. He's been disbarred since I walked in his office. In fact, 3 attorneys that I went to and gave my information have been put in prison and disbarred. So he files a lawsuit for, like, I think it was $16 million, the same amount of money Jim Wade said I was going to get with my wife. They win an out-of-court judgment for $16 million versus the attorney versus the North Mississippi Medical Center for false tax connected to Franklin Collection Agency. My heart dropped because, again, I'm like the Forrest Gump of Mississippi. I'm running around. I'm at every place where everything's happening. It's in the news, but my name is never mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's like my ex-wife literally said, you are totally the Forrest Gump of Mississippi. And I'm like, well, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, Laura. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my little impressions. If I didn't have a sense of humor, I probably wouldn't be here today. Right. Every time they threw me in prison, I entertained the inmates. I sang. I did impressions of President Ronald Reagan and all presidents. Nixon and all these. And I would just Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, and just I would make skits up, and I'd have them crying and laughing. And maybe that's how I stayed alive, being the Elvis guy, because my commercial would be up on TV of the show I created, Double Trouble, while I'm in prison they would play me on TV. So next month, get your tickets for $15. Make sure you catch Double Trouble, the only Brother Elvis act in the world, performing live Saturday for 1 hour and 45 minutes. And they're going, man, is that you? I'm like, I start making these murderers laugh, like I got to be their friend or they're probably going to kill me.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to be the nice guy in here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
does-
Yeah. I mean, I've been to prison 27 times actually in the last 10 years. So if you add all the times I've been falsely incarcerated, I think I've served close to 3 years behind bars and missed several birthdays, plays. I missed my little boy's first grade bumblebee. He was a bumblebee in a play, and I had 7 trials in 1 year, and they were like 8 hours, 10 hours, 6 hours, and I just kept saying, man, I should have went to law school. Thankfully, I watched Perry Mason, and the judge would slam this hammer. Don't you make a mockery of this court. I'll hold you in contempt. You're not a comedian. You're not entertaining us. We're not paying you. And I'm like, well, you're forcing me to represent myself and play an attorney today. And I believe that's against my constitutional and civil rights. And they'd be contempt of court. Get him out now. And they would cover me in shackles and chains and drag me out, bruising me all up. And my poor mother's out there crying, oh, my baby, my baby.
Hmm.
And all this because you opened the refrigerator door.
You see this? You see the name on this cup, Wes Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wes Hunter is who I had to become for 10 years. I want you to know my little boy was 9 years old. He looked up at me and he said, Dad, we were at a show. I paid him $50 every time I went and did a show to set up my sound equipment and carry things. And he would say, Dad, he looked up at me. He said, you got to be the only person today in the world that's pretending to be this man who's pretending to be 50 other people on stage. And I looked down at him and I said, Gable, I love you. You've always been an old soul. You are going to be something great in life. Well, he graduated with honors 2 years ago from Alabama, and now he got a full scholarship, and he's taking psychiatry. He's going to be a psychiatrist. He's taking therapy, and he's got a fully paid scholarship. Everything's paid for. He's just just raising him was such an honor. And I know everybody I talked to over the years, man, your eyes light up when you talk about your kids, but that didn't make the documentary. They allowed my ex-wife to get intoxicated on camera and just start laughing about everything. Like, I heard the car blew up. Yeah, it wasn't the chicken. It wasn't the chicken. Oh yeah, she's sipping a lot, but I guess that's what they wanted. Me and my mother are probably the only two people that drank sweet tea with root of ginger and mint leaves for 3 years. I never touched any alcohol. I've never touched drugs in my life. Well, that's not true. When I was 15 years old, I was about to go do a show with my band Fairchild. I've got our pictures up on the wall. It was a rock band. We were the only rock band in Southwest Mississippi, and we played at bowling alleys, National Guard armories, skating rinks, rented out teen centers, and someone, I won't say who because it'll embarrass them, and I'm related to him, so he's like, here, just take a little of this, just smoke this, man, you'll love it. And I'm like, I don't know, should I? And peer pressure, I did it, and it just destroyed my voice. I don't know if it came from the ghetto of Chicago and was stomped on and run over by roaches, but yeah, I smoked this, and I take the microphone that night. Yeah, it was. I bet it was. And here's like 150 teenagers that we've been entertaining for the last year. And and they go, okay, we're about to start our Prince set. We're going to start out with Little Red Corvette. And I'm like, I sounded like Rocky. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And couldn't sing a note. And the lead guitarist looks over at me like, the hell, man, you got pipes of gold. Like, we've never heard you sound like this. And I couldn't actually, grab my mic and say, oh, I smoked a joint with,
Right.
So I'm just
Now
like,
that's
I don't know
legal.
what happened, but
Ish.
the keyboard player had to finish out the damn set. It was so embarrassing. I never touched marijuana again. I never touched any drugs. I was offered cocaine. I was offered every kind of drug there was from the time I was 15 until I was 50. And literally, I turned down every single time because I guess it was my mother just always saying, don't do what Elvis did. Don't let anybody push you onto drugs and you not be able to control your thinking and your body and die early. And she just kept putting that in my mind. And I guess it subliminally programmed me like, don't even think about it.
Right.
So,
Right.
like I remember listening to Tony Robbins on the 30-day program, Personal Power. He said, when my father, caught me drinking a beer when I was a teenager, he went and bought like 2 6-packs and he said, drink every one of them.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Don't. And he puked his lungs out. He said, I just stopped drinking, never touched beer again. So, we got some smart parents out there.
Sure. Now, Casey, you have a book coming out, a much anticipated book called The Missing Pieces. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I started writing Missing Pieces shortly after my home burned down, and I was in a condo that the insurance company put us up in, and I just literally took out a journal and I started writing down. I actually wrote down like the end, like I'm getting handcuffed, I'm getting thrown against the wall by armed security, and I came up with Keith Carter. And the interesting thing, Keith has 5 letters. Kevin has 5 letters. Keith starts with a K. Carter starts with a C. Curtis starts with a C. Carter has 6 letters. Curtis has 6 letters. So I was thinking all this stuff out, but way beforehand, like I want to make this perfect. I want to put the ending in front and then go back to 1967 where, little Kevin is born in the swamps of Louisiana. And then his father gets a job as an insurance salesman in Dallas, Texas. And they moved to Dallas, Texas. And this was right after, President Kennedy had been assassinated. And my dad was real political, was real into everything. He knew a lot about the Kennedy assassination. And we just started moving all over the place. Now, so I started writing that in my journal, and I knew in my mind this is going to be a novel one day. Like I'm going to keep these notes, and then a year later, I opened up a Word document on my Gateway 2000. I said, Scene 1, like Act 1, Scene 1, and I put screenplay, and I started working on a screenplay, and I don't know how I knew how to do this because I had not read any books or anything. It was later that I went to the library and started checking out books and purchasing books like How to Write Your Own Screenplay and get the logistics down and everything, and get the legality all, because there's a lot of legality when you start writing. Changing the names to protect the guilty is the first rule. And so I just thought it was the truth. So it was so easy to write. And when I thought, I got to come up with a name, what would be a good name? Well, the refrigerator full of body parts, pieces of skin, pieces of bone fragments, a severed head. So, and those pieces are missing from people's bodies. So I thought Missing Pieces is perfect. And so I created a book cover with puzzle pieces because my life was a puzzle that had been thrown out in the dirt, and I'm trying to put the pieces back together, and I can't make them fit because I don't know who my enemies are. I don't know who the gang stalkers are. I don't know where the death threats are coming from. My attorney refused to find out and go pull the video at the Shell station where the first death threat of 25 death threats came from. Literally, when someone calls and said, "We're going to kill your children if you don't stop talking about body parts." Well, that registered. Well, now I know that's the threat that I am to this entity, because why would someone call me? And they sounded so serious, so real. And it put the fear in me, because and it was like weeks later that my ex-wife got into the car that I had been driving for 5 years. I drove it to the hospital almost every day. It was a 1966 Plymouth Valiant with a slant six engine, no computer mechanisms whatsoever. So when the police, the fire department say, must have been a computer glitch, like, what are you, a third grade dropout? Like, what does it take in Mississippi to become a cop? Like, you're going to tell me a 1966 Plymouth Valiant, a computer mechanism overheated or must have blew up your car? It was weeks before they threatened to murder me and my children if I didn't shut up. So my wife goes out. I'm going to Walmart with the kids. She puts 3 kids in the car, 1 in the front seat, 2 in the back. Row, 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 row. I spent $10,000 on that car in 5 years. It always started right off. This morning, row, 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 row. And I remember Laura telling me, I didn't think it was going to start, but on like the 5th turnover, boom, something exploded under the hood and blew the hood up and hit the window and cracked the window. Everything in the car burned. My wife throwing my kids out in the concrete. You can't make this stuff up. So when they asked her on the Netflix documentary, they wanted to talk about that. But there is an illness out there, my friends. There is a disease. It is in the mind. I don't know the name of it. I should have wrote it down so I could drop the name, but it is something that, and you may know it, medically, people that just laugh out loud. Like, you talk about, my mother just passed away last week. Like the Joker,
Right.
like that movie, The Joker, that played, and I Walked the Line, that Phoenix guy that played the Joker that laughed. He had that disease. He carried a card saying, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but I laugh out loud for no reason.
Right.
When my ex-wife told me about her beloved grandfather dying, she just started laughing. I said, why are you laughing? Like, you're telling me how much you love him. He meant everything. And he left you this 1966 Plymouth Valiant car that he bought off the lot in 1966. Like, and she's like, I don't know. When I talk about anything that freaks me out or I get nervous about, I just laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So I should have told the producers of Netflix and the director that. I just didn't think about it. But I haven't even watched my own docu-series. I've watched 30 minutes of the first series, 20 minutes of the second, and 30 minutes of the third. I just haven't had time. And when I do try to make time, I have to relive everything that happened to me, the nightmares. And it's very difficult because I never had therapy for 25 years going through all this. House burning down, 7 home invasions, thefts, robberies, death threats, 25 false arrests, 58 kangaroo court hearings, national news attention with my name attached to terrorism, blacklisted all over this country, being called the everything but the Antichrist. Like, nobody wanted to be around me. My kids didn't want to be around me. They were embarrassed by me. Their friends were saying, my dad says you crazy. What does your dad do for a living? Well, he's a cop. My dad says you're crazy. What does he do? He's a doctor. My dad says your dad's crazy. What is he? Well, he owns a funeral home.
Right.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's been a roller coaster, and I hope I answered your question. I get to thinking about all this, and it does not get jumbled in my mind. It's like a blueprint. I can pull out whatever answer you need, whatever topic that we talked about a few topics, of the things I've been through. The most important thing I would just love to throw out there is I was released without prejudice. After the feds came into my prison cell in April the 18th, I was arrested on April 17th. And if you look back in history, Waco, Texas, Oklahoma City bombing, uh, Boston Marathon, it all happened the second week in April. Big coincidence, I guess. Gun control, commercials start coming out. Oh, we got to do something about terrorism. Jon Stewart made a valid point on his show, Jon Stewart Live. He did a skit on me after I was framed, and he's like, "Hey, the guy likes pretty feet. You know, he seems like a nice guy. How many of you can go through this and come out making jokes and be released from prison and being told you're never going to see your kids again? You spend the rest of your life in prison and have a sense of humor. Like, give this guy some credit. Like Jon Stewart stood up for me." And it was like a couple of weeks later, he no longer had a show. Another coincidence. I was on the Katie Couric show. Like 7 weeks later, her show was booted off the air. And I was talking about all the body parts, and they would cut, edit, cut, and then go to commercial. And the producer would walk up to me, Mr. Curtis, let's not talk about God, and let's kind of, not talk about the body parts. Let's stick to the ricin arrest. I'm like, but I think it's linked. I'm 100% convinced that it's linked. In fact, I told at least 50 people over the last 4 years that I felt strongly that I was going to be framed, and it would involve the president of the United States, and I would be like a Lee Harvey Oswald, a patsy. And friends of mine would be like, "Man, that's the craziest crap I ever heard. Don't say crap like that. You don't want to speak that into fruition." And I'd be like, "No, I just feel it. I feel it's coming." I told the executive director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Vidalia, Louisiana, who hired me for the Jim Bowie Festival to be the featured entertainer in 2011 and 12. I sat down after my show with her. She goes, "Oh, the phones are ringing off the hook. They're all the people that came to the festival said they were blown away by your 20 impressions and your tribute act. They're all wanting to know, are you going to be here next year? So I've already put your name down for feature entertainer next year." I said, "Oh, that's great, Jamie." And then I sat down at the dinner table and I told her the whole story about the body parts. She goes, "Oh my God, I never would have thought." I said, "Hey, Jamie, did you notice the 25 or 30 out of uniform cops, law enforcement at the festival?" She goes, "Oh my God, I did." I said, "How many years have you been doing this?" She said, 5. I said, "How many cops and out of uniform cops have you ever seen with guns and like a badge on their belt, but blue jeans and a t-shirt?" She goes, "We've never seen more than 2 or 3 in the 5 years that I've been doing this." And I go, "You're welcome."
So what about James Everett Dutchke? How did that whole development come about?
Came on my radar around 2007. And by that, I mean, women on MySpace.com started texting me and saying, "Hey, do you know a guy named Everett Dusku?" And they couldn't pronounce his name. And I'd be like, they would text me, they would call me on the phone. Some of them I knew, some of them were just people out in the world. I had like 5,000 friends. I created my MySpace first page in 2003 in August, like 3 days after they put the platform up. Tom Anderson, yeah, right. Rupert Murdoch, he owns the entire platform. Multi-billionaire, involved in everything from Sony to Warner Brothers. That's another conspiracy story. But staying on track, he would ask all these women that were on my page, "What do you know about Kevin Curtis? Have you ever met him in person?" And they're like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm from North Carolina, but I've moved to Tupelo, Mississippi. But I'm trying to get some information on this Kevin Curtis, this Elvis guy." And then I did not text him. I did not reach out to him. I just kind of let it go in the back of my mind for several months. Well, then a woman from Applebee's restaurant in Tupelo, a waitress, shows up at my front door in her uniform, her little green shirt and her name tag that said Missy. And she's like, knock, knock, knock. And I opened the door on Saturday night and hello? And hi. And she's like, hi, I'm Missy. I'm on your MySpace page. I'm like, oh, okay. Do you live here in Boonville?
Right.
It freaked me out. And I
Mhm.
said, how did you know that I lived here? She goes, well, you posted a picture of you in front of a campfire with your little boy, and I saw the giant lit up neon palm tree, and I just drove around, and I remember in my mind, I went down Lake Street and I saw that lit up 10-foot palm tree. You're the only person in town that has one. So I just thought I'd knock on the door and see if that was you. I said, okay, stalker much?
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it gets real interesting. She refused to be interviewed on the Kings of Tupelo, and she is the insider. She is the missing piece to what connected the karate instructor to myself and the whole story. She walks into my house with his newspaper that he published. And I go, what's that? She goes, okay, can I sit down? I said, sure, have a seat. Then she goes, well, it's so nice to meet you. I followed you on MySpace for like 2 years. And I go, I think I do remember adding you. You sent me a request, and you have the green shirt on in your photo. She goes, yeah, I do. It's been my same picture for years. I said, oh, okay. And she says, I just got to tell you, there's this guy, and his name is weird. It's German or something. He's like from another country. It's Everett Dusky. I said, okay. Yeah, I've seen his name on my radar on myspace.com. She goes, well, he's been questioning me about you, and that's how I met him. And he found out I worked at Applebee's, and he started coming in every day, 5 days a week, and asking for me to be his waitress once he realized we were connected. And he sat down, and I took his order, and the first thing he said was, have you met Kevin Curtis in person? And she goes, no, but I'm dying to. And he's like, why are you dying to? She goes, well, I want a foot massage. And he says, ha ha ha. Yeah, I bet you do. Well, don't you think he's kind of weird with all this severed head business? And I go, oh, so he knows about my campaign for organ harvesting. Oh, he knows all about it. And he's just real intrigued. He asked me 1,000 questions every week about you. And I said, just call him. His number's on the internet. Like, you can find him easy. And I'm like, well, obviously you just found my house from a picture. And I took the palm tree down and put it in my music room, by the way. So she shows me the newspaper, and I look at it, and there's a header that says, I, James Everett Dusky, will print any story in Northeast Mississippi, no matter how controversial. If you have a story that the Daily Journal or any other publication will not publish, come to me, call me. I will print anything, no matter how controversial. I said, oh, he's messed up. Yeah, I got a story. So I grab my cell phone, my little flip phone, open it up. I get his answer machine. I said, hello, sir. My name is Kevin Curtis, and a lady from Applebee's just come to my house and brought me your newspaper that you produce, you publish, and I just read your statement of values that says you'll publish any story, no matter how controversial. Well, I've got a story. Let's interview. Come interview me. I'll come to you. Whatever. Thank you. Have a great evening. I hung up the phone. Never heard back from him. Me and Missy talked for about 20, 30 minutes. And then she said she had to get home to her kids and relieve the babysitter. She starts texting me on my phone. I'm still getting messages from 10 or 20 other women on MySpace. This guy is freaking me out. He's obsessed with you. So, I try to, like I was telling the producer of Netflix 3 years ago when he started asking me and drilling me, how did it all begin? What were the times and the dates? I remembered more than he said. I remembered more factually, dates, times, what was going on, what restaurant we went to, how the weather was, who was there. He's like, of all the people we've ever done a documentary on or interviewed, you remember more than anybody, and you have documentation to back it up, and you've kept records, you've kept newspaper articles, you've kept screenshots and printed them out. Like they literally said to my face, you have more documentation than any subject we've ever covered in all these years. And it literally took Kurt Russell's nephew, McLean Wade, 3.5 hours in the scorching heat going through my storage room to get everything out and boxed up photos, flash drives, CDs, photo albums, computers, phones, photos, negatives, you name it. He's like, man, you kept everything safe. And I told him, you know how I have these flash drives and all these CDs of all my research? He said, how? I said, I put them in a Ziploc. I covered them in tinfoil. I put them in a lockbox that was waterproof, and I buried them 3 feet under the ground. And when I was released from prison after being framed in the presidential assassination plot, I drove out there and I dug it up and brought it back. Now, had I not done that, there would be no chapters to my book, Missing Pieces. There would be that I saved, or the hard drives, the flash. I said, Secret Service and the FBI and Homeland Security broke down my door and they took my book. They took my flash drives. They took everything and they never returned it. So I told my attorney, that's how I know that the Ricin deal is connected to the body parts organ harvesting. If it wasn't connected, why didn't they return every bit of my research, my book, my flash drives? My flash drive had, one of my flash drives had 4,000 documents. Another one, 6,000 photo screenshots to prove my conversations with Michael Mastromarino's wife. Now, let's talk about that. Michael Mastromarino, the first person in the world to be convicted, indicted, and put in prison for the illegal distribution and sale of body parts, bones, tissue, and organs. Now, here's the clicker right here. I didn't get credit. Nobody mentioned Paul Kevin Curtis. I literally sent 790 documents of my years of research to Fox News in Jackson, Mississippi, to Shepard Smith, to 5 journalists in New York City, to the FBI, to the local law enforcement, to 10 attorneys, 5 politicians, news people and media in LA, Chicago, and New York, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune, everywhere. I spent hours every day. It was crazy. Like I wanted to make sure everybody that was in a position to investigate what I had connected, the dots, they got my information. So I call up, I connect the dots, and this guy that is an oral surgeon named Michael Mastromarino out in Florida, I interviewed retired funeral home directors and owners. I interviewed retired morticians. I interviewed retired physicians, been retired 25 years on their deathbed. Well, they were honest with me. They're about to die. They're like coming clean. Like they feel like if they tell this stranger, Kevin Curtis, what they know, maybe they'll make it into the gates of heaven after all the things they did that were wrong.
Right.
I don't know what the
Unburdening
reasons
themselves.
were.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I put
Deathbed
it all
confessions.
together. Yes, deathbed confessions, exactly.
Mhm.
So Barbara Mastromarino answers the phone. I said, hello. She goes, hello. I said, my name is Paul Kevin Curtis. I'm doing some research. All of my research has led me to your husband. You are married to Michael Master Marino. Correct? She goes, what does this pertain to? I said, well, I'm researching. First of all, ma'am, I'm sorry to just bombard you with this. I was fired and banned from the largest nonprofit metropolitan healthcare system in the United States of America after finding a severed head and about 40 severed body parts wrapped in plastic with barcodes. Click. She hung up the phone. I waited a few minutes.
Yeah.
I waited a few minutes and I called back. Her husband, Michael Mastrobrino, answered. Hello. I said, yes, my name is Kevin Curtis. I think I just spoke with your wife, Barbara. Yes. I said, I'm doing research, and my research has led me to you and a few other people that own some funeral homes. He goes, what do you need to know? Why are you calling my home? How did you get my number? And I said, well, sir, I've been massively researching for years, and I just need to know, what is your connection to funeral homes? You're an oral surgeon. Click. So I'm running around Tupelo, Mississippi. I'm telling everybody I know, I think I've made a connection. This guy with this weird last name, he's a multi-millionaire. If you go to his MySpace page, he's on his yacht out in the ocean, you know, just with his 6-disc CD player, jamming and dancing and listening to music and bragging about everything he has. I mean, he had the life. Well, he doesn't have a life anymore. He's now 6 feet under. The news broke one Friday at 3:30 p.m. Shepard Smith, the first news person I sent my 790-page documents to, and I literally called Fox News before all this happened. I said, hello, I'm Paul Kevin Curtis. Did you receive the documents I sent on body parts, black market body parts? They said, yes, sir, we did receive it, and several of our producers have looked over it, and we've looked into it, and no offense, but we think you need psychiatric help. And I go, really?
Right.
Yeah.
I gave him a little Jim Carrey, you know.
Mhm.
And I said, so you think I'm crazy? And they said, with all due respect, Mr. Curtis, I mean, come on. People, they harvest your lungs, your liver, your heart, your
Kidneys.
eyes. Yeah, they go, you can't harvest a sack of bones and a head, you know, and a femur bone and a foot and a hand. And I'm like, no, on the contrary, you can. In my opinion, you can. I think this is happening, and I do not believe it's ever been published anywhere in the world. And I'm digging into this. I've lost everything, and they hung up on me. Fast forward, weeks later, Fox News, of all people, Shepard Smith, and it's in the Kings of Tupelo. They show my face on his body. Did you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like Shepard Smith is from Mississippi. He's born in Mississippi. And he was I don't know if he's still with Fox, but he was the guy, you know, back in the day. Shepard Smith, Fox News Live.
Yeah.
Well, he was the guy. So he's like, we have a story right out of a horror movie, a body part, black market scam, New York City to Florida. Thousands of body parts have been harvested illegally without the consent of the family. And Michael Mastromarino is the mastermind behind it. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happening.
I knew it.
I knew it. I was right.
Yeah.
You know, it was just that moment of confirmation and clarity that my years of painstaking digging, question asking, research, I lost everything. And I started thinking, if I've lost everything that I've worked for, there's a valid reason I have to be right. my hunch of opening that refrigerator door when I was thirsty and picking up that severed head and showing it to Michael and Rhonda and Amy and Lisa. Well, they never talked to me again. Only Rhonda, the head of radiology, she would text me on MySpace, and I would screenshot every 10 seconds and save it to a flash drive, the one that I buried. I still have that today. And I gave that to Netflix, but it did not make it into the documentary. I'll say it again. The people in the United States of America, in 80 countries, 300 million people who watch the largest streamlining platform in the entire world, Netflix, they only saw 30% of this story. My book, Missing Pieces, will reveal the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story.
Yeah.
You remember him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
right now it's estimated to be like a 1.7, almost $2 billion market a year on body parts.
And did you know that 10 years ago?
No.
No.
Did you know that 5 years ago?
Yeah, I've known there's a black market for body parts for a while. But I also do lots of conspiracy rabbit holes. I think way more than Ian does. So.
Yeah, I'm more spoon-fed by my environment. So I see like Joe Dirt when he's got a piece of his belly squeaking when he comes out of that surgery in a comedy movie. I can't like fathom that it's actually real until the Kings of Tupelo came out and some of the validation that you had with the previous person that you were talking about there.
Exactly. And the karate instructor who coincidentally woke up one morning after moving from North Carolina and says, I think I want to sell life and health insurance. And he just goes down. Right. He takes, he goes and knocks on my brother's door. Hey, can I get the paperwork and take who are you? Oh, I'm a guy that from North Carolina. I moved down here to Tupelo. I just want to start over. I've been through some things. I just want to settle down and live a more normal life. And I think being an insurance salesman. Okay, a week later, he joins my brother's team at the office and becomes an agent for the insurance company. Well, I don't know this is happening. I'm oblivious. All I know is what I'm seeing on MySpace with all these women contacting me saying, this guy is obsessed with you. So, and Missy from Applebee's. That's all I've put together at this point. So, in the backdrop of everything, in the hidden secret world of my brother and my ex-wife, he hires him. And the first thing he does is ask, can I be placed into Laura Curtis's unit? And there's this other insurance agent named Tommy Abney. He's like, no, I want Laura. I want to be in her unit. I don't know who you are, new guy. And then the whole office turned against the karate instructor. Everyone hated him, but Laura, my ex-wife. She thought he was great, funny. And listen, funny, like, this guy is not the kind of guy that's going to be doing improv at the comedy shop. He's very narcissistic, very low key. He's like Nicolas Cage with 3 volumes. He's like, I just want you to know that I'm a Mensa officer and I am of high intelligence. I am very superior to common man. You know,
and he was pretty upset when you made that certificate, wasn't he?
Right.
Yeah, and listen,
you were Mensa.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Hey, look, tell me right now. Come on, feed my ego. Was that not genius of me?
That was freaking awesome, great. Dude. That was awesome, and his reaction to it was legendary. His reaction was like what made the whole thing, because you knew that you could play off his ego on that. Like, no, I'm the card-carrying member. I know for sure that Kevin Curtis, he flipped out about that.
I love when you start saying, and I approve this message. Like, that's awesome.
Right.
Yeah, hey, I'm KC and I approve this message. I love that, man.
When they put me in the prison cell on the first day, April the 17th, what do you think the first thing I took? A piece of metal that was in there. What do you think I carved above the toilet into the brick wall? Take a guess.
I'm KC, and I approve this message.
Bingo, buddy.
There you go.
Bingo. No. Close. I said, I'm KC, and I approve this jail cell.
Oh,
Nice.
Okay, but it gets better. 2 weeks later, Everett Dusky's arrested, and they put him in the same cell that I was held in. So he had to read that
No.
message.
Oh, that's
did
hilarious.
he really? So,
Yeah.
how do you think that James Everett Dutschke got to this elaborate plan of where? How fucked up do you have to be? Sorry, Mimaz, I owe you a quarter. How messed up do you got to be to create this elaborate plot and send envelopes full of rice into these political figures, especially the president of the United States?
Right. And then frame you
Okay.
for it.
I think I've come to two conclusions, two theories, and I told this to Netflix producer, and they did not put it in the documentary, but I'm gonna tell you my first theory. You may not know. I'm sure you do, though. You could, since you dig and you're good at what you do. Going down the rabbit holes and finding out these conspiracies and what makes it happen. He was charged with several counts of child molestation.
Yeah.
Weeks before he mailed the ricin, allegedly mailed the ricin. Okay. The reason I say allegedly, we'll get to that in about 65 seconds. When my ex-wife, we were at Ruby Tuesdays eating after my son did a play, and she's like, "Did you hear Everett got arrested? It's something to do with child molestation?" My eyes were this big. I literally fell out of my chair, ran outside, got on my cell phone, started texting all of my contacts that kept up with my research and my story. I said, "It's happening. He just went to jail. Child molestation. Something bigger is happening. I don't know if it's really child molestation or if some kind of cover up is happening." But literally, my little conspiracy realist mind started ticking. And I'm thinking, for somebody that owns 6 businesses, that sells life insurance, is playing guitar in a little 3-piece band down at the local tavern, a karate instructor. He works at H&R Block doing tax assessor work. He publishes a newspaper. Like, I envied this guy. I'm like, I only have 3 careers. This guy has 7. Like,
Right.
whoa, he's pretty damn smart. So I'm thinking he's too smart to molest children and get caught. Like, okay, I know the dojo. I know what it's like to be in a karate dojo. I have taken martial arts for 25 years in 3 states and 2 countries, Canada and the United States. I've trained in 3 forms of martial arts. I've never been an instructor. I've read every book. I've read Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. I've read Eddie Parker's book. I've read it all. I've self-practiced. I've trained under instructors. But the problem I always have with instructors is I have that Bruce Lee mentality of no way is way. And when we're doing our forms and our kicks and our throat punches and our roundhouse scissor kicks, and we do the same thing every day, I would question my instructors and literally get thrown out of the dojo. Who do you think you are? You know, like, I'm the instructor. Do what I say. Don't question my ethics and don't question my forms and how I'm training you. You're a student of mine. And like, I was literally asked to leave 3 dojos, one in Chicago, one in Natchez, Mississippi, one in Memphis, Tennessee. So I was confrontational, but I was a gentleman about it. I would nicely ask, what about this way? Because if I'm in a street fight and someone puts a gun to my head, another guy has a knife at my throat, and there's 7 other guys surrounding me with their hands on me, like, I'm not Bruce Lee. I might die if I try. Right. I'm never gonna see my daughter and my 3 sons again. Like, I'm not going to take that chance. I'm not that seasoned of a badass like Bruce Lee is. And I would have these conversations with all these instructors, and they would be like, maybe you need to find another instructor, another dojo, Mr. Curtis. I'm like, okay, I will. So, that's when I started home training. My ex-wife mentions that in the documentary. It's like, oh yeah, he had kickboxing bags and punching speed bags, and he would work out every day and stretch, and that's what I did to keep myself in shape. But Everett Dusky getting arrested, child molestation. Okay, when you are teaching martial arts and you're in the dojo, you have to physically touch your students.
Right.
You have to put your hands and position them, pull them, put their hands here, close their fists, stretch. You touch. It's a physical art. Okay, it's not baseball. Just pick up your bat and swing. It's physical. There's a lot of your sensei is touching your student. So I'm playing the devil's advocate for week 1. And I'm going, I mean, yeah, he touched the girls and the boys in the dojo. I mean, I've been touched a lot in the dojo. I never said, oh, I've been molested.
Okay.
So I started thinking, did Steve Holland influence some of the mothers that he knows? Because this man is powerful in Northeast Mississippi. Did he condition their mind, go in there and just make up a bunch of stories and get the law looking at him? So I never was told what proof they had other than some mothers saying he inappropriately touched my child.
Right.
Okay, so I'm playing the devil's advocate. Now, I can't stand the guy. I can't stand Dusky. Like, this guy has stalked me for years. Screw him. I'm glad he's in jail. That was how I felt. I'm going to be honest about it. But as a thinker, I'm a deep thinker. As a thinker, I was asking myself questions, just like Tony Robbins always says. I'm the why guy. I want to know why. So I'm like, why and how could this happen? And what feasible, logical way could he fuck up and allow someone to see him touch a child inappropriately with all the parents there? Parents come to the dojo and watch their children work out in martial arts every single class.
Yep.
It's never just the student and the sensei. So unless you're having a private lesson. So that's number one. He gets arrested and he gets 25 years in Parchman Prison State Penitentiary. Okay, listen closely. Bruce Lee himself would not last in Parchman for a week. If you walk into Parchman Prison as a child molester, I give you 3 days, 3 hours to live. No matter how much of a badass you are. And see, every time I was incarcerated, local jails, prison, whatever it was, I walk in, I'm confident, I'm a black belt. I've had street fights in Chicago with the Latin Kings. I can carry myself with 7, 8 guys. I've done it. I've walked away with minimal bleeding and bruising in front of my son, which I hate he's had to see 5 years ago. Me fight 8 men with one with a gun. True story. No charges were filed. All caught on video. Still have the video. But when you walk in there, you realize quick, your narcissism, your ego, your martial arts training, your boxing, your MMA, out the door. It means nothing. You will be killed quickly. When you walk in, you have to be street smart and you have to look a certain way. You don't walk in and go, hey, what are you in here for? Did you kill somebody? Did you rob a store? Did you print some fake money? I mean, when I walked in from the first arrest to the 27th, I made no eye contact with anyone. There were certain times when it was in a little tiny jail that I was held in a drunk tank for 3 days and then sent to open population for 5 days. And I've spent a maximum of 9 days and I got out. I became the personality of the entire damn facility. Even the jailers were like, I'm going to bring you some extra cake tomorrow. Like when you did that Johnny Cash impression, nailed it. I love Johnny If a Cash. And so they liked me. Like I learned how to play the system. I learned how to be. But Everett Dusky, he knew that where I'm going with this, he's intelligent. He's a genius. He knew theory number 2, if I go to Parchman Prison, I'm going to die. So let me see, what can I do to go to a federal prison instead and get the 25 years dropped off state where I won't be murdered? And in federal prison, I can work out with the weights. I can play basketball. I can do all these things. They feed you steak sometimes. There's a difference in federal prison with the Unabomber and Charles Manson than there is a local state penitentiary where you go in as a child molester, you die. Are you following me?
Yeah, I just want to make sure
okay.
that I want to make sure that I'm tracking though. Are you suggesting that Everett Dutschke trumped his own charges of child molestation for the ricin attempts on the president?
Yes, and I say that because he's so intelligent that when he saw my YouTube comment under one of his videos where he's doing the Rubik's Cube, and he's actually solving the Rubik's Cube in like, I don't know, 60 seconds. And I posted, I'll see you in court Monday. I am KC and I approve this message. He flipped like a switch went off when he saw that message because he knew I was going to be in that courtroom. And if I was in that courtroom, then I get to see who his friends are, who his enemies are, who the judge is. Was it going to be Sadie Holland, who hated him? I would put more pieces of the puzzle together. Well, it wasn't my fate to enter that courtroom because they kept me out of that courtroom and lied to me and told me that the court proceeding was in Tupelo, and I drove to Tupelo. It was held in Oxford, an hour and a half away. So I missed the first trial. Well, so Everett goes to this trial. He pleads guilty, and it takes a plea bargain that if they drop the charge, no. He pleads, no, I'm sorry, back up. He pleads not guilty at that one with his first attorney. I'm not there. I get told by hearsay from people that were in there. And he pleads not guilty. Then he bonds out of the child molestation case. So he's out on probation. He's bonded out. His wife has bonded him out. So he goes home to his computer. He remembers my arrogant message, I'll see you in court. I'm Casey. And he remembers that. And he's like, that son of a bitch. I'm going to get Kevin no matter what. So he's thinking, how can I kill 2 birds with 1 stone and come out alive? So he comes up with a plan to frame me. Now there's an A and a B to this. A, he plans, I'm going to send these 3 letters laced with this ricin. Okay, I'm going to grind up these beans with a coffee maker. I'm going to leave all of the evidence, including the gloves and the face mask, in the trash can right in front of the door at the dojo. Mensa officer, 170 IQ.
Right.
You think he would have burned it out on a dirt road somewhere 80 miles away. So some people say, was he framed? So I say to the Netflix producers, was it a framing of a framing? Okay. So part B of A is to drop the state charges and get out of Parchman where they would murder you and you would live with the rats and roaches and eat cold grits with no sugar and tea with no sugar and be murdered potentially. Or send these letters and pepper them with things that Kevin Curtis says. Nobody would listen to me. There's so many missing pieces. I am KC and I approve this message. What person in their right mind would pepper a death threat against the president that's been putting it out and sending it to every politician in the country?
Yeah, and even more interesting, you had sent letters to those politicians before, but not for that reason. You were trying to propose legislation to end black market sales of organ.
Exactly. And every letter that and they're out there, they're still out there. They're on my hard drives. Forensically, the Netflix people, forensic people pulled it up in Hollywood. They've got it. Now, why it was not in, maybe I was told by my agent in LA that there's a potential that there's going to be a second series, a part two. It depends on the popularity, the how people perceive it. And right now, I'm gonna tell you, it's obviously popular because I have 8,000 messages, 4,000 emails and private messages, 2,000 I've not even opened. My phone rings off the hook. I've turned down 300 interviews. You guys are the second people that I've agreed to interview with. The first was Christy Lee, who was a former mainstream news media host, and she talked to me for 5 minutes, and I was like, I called up my agent in LA and I said, here's her portfolio. She has been in mainstream media for years. She's now privately doing podcasts and interviews, and she's very interested in talking to me and wants to hear what I have to say, and she's not going to censor it. And he says, okay, go ahead and do that one. He gave me the okay. So, but he told me, he said, stand down. I said, look, I've got 300 interviews and 50 of them are paid. They want to pay me to talk, and I'm ready to talk. And my agent in LA said, no, stand down, make them wonder, let the people wonder, where's Kevin at? What's he doing? And, but you know what? I'm just tired of not talking. I'm tired of not going to,
for a while.
I don't go to Walmart. Like, if I walk into Walmart, 50 people surround me begging for autograph, taking pictures. And you know what? I've had that my whole life. I've been on the front page of 16,000 newspapers. I've been on the front page of 30 newspapers in my hometown from the time I was 5 years old. Every time I turned around, there was a newspaper person. And I'm wondering, like, I want to go ask my freaking dad before he passes, Dad, did you pay these guys to come to the house Christmas morning when I was jumping on the trampoline and say, a bouncing boy, Paul Kevin Curtis, gets a trampoline for Christmas? Like, how was Dwayne, Richardson of the Natchez Democrat just happened to be on John Glenn Avenue that morning when I was 5 years old and snap a picture of me? And then a month later, I go to a haunted house and they pick me out of 2,000 kids to be in the haunted skit with Frankenstein and a ghost and a goblin. And there I was on the front page of the paper. I remember Mac and Chap, Kurt Russell's nephew, sitting down with me. They took me out to dinner. They go, man, we paid for this thing that is a program that runs your name worldwide and finds out every time you've ever been mentioned or made the front page of a newspaper, media, radio. And he said, it's not cheap. But man, you have been in the news, in the media, in the internet, in the newspapers more than 20,000 times. Like, we've never even fathomed this of anybody we've ever done a documentary on or talked to or interviewed. And I'm like, holy crap, really? And they start showing me. And I'm like, I don't know. It boggled my mind because I didn't know I was in the paper in Russia. on the front page. I didn't know I was on the paper in Canada and on TV shows in Winnipeg, Canada, and Ontario and China. It's like, oh my God. And people ask me, like, why do you think your story caught the attention of the world? And I joke with them and I go, because I'm just awesome.
Yeah.
And then I get real with them, I don't have an ego. I'm not a narcissist. So I tell them the truth from my own perspective. I say, logically, three things happen. Tupelo, Mississippi, birthplace of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Me labeled as an Elvis impersonator in every one of this, ever since it broke out, from the presidential assassination plot to they labeled me an Elvis impersonator. And my whole life, before I ever agreed to a gig or a show or a festival fundraiser, I would tell them, you cannot put me down in the paper, magazine, or the radio as an Elvis impersonator. I never, ever in my life want to be called an Elvis impersonator. That's not what I am. I write songs. I produce music. I think of songs. I write them. I go into a recording studio. I lay down the tracks. I pay a live band to come in. I grow a goatee or a beard. I go to Nashville. I'm on television shows at Nashville City, Opryland, USA, Studio B. I go down to Nashville as Kevin Curtis, the country music singer and songwriter. I never wanted to be labeled an Elvis impersonator because I knew as a 13-year-old, I remember telling my mom, I know everyone calls me Elvis. I know you joke around and I'm the best Elvis and Natchez and all blah, blah, blah. I said, but Mom, that will hurt me when I grow up. I know I want to be all these different characters on stage and I want to be comedic. I want to make people laugh. I want to bring happiness to people. I want to go to hospitals, burn centers, nursing homes, schools. I want to speak to people. And you know what? And my mom's like, why do you want to do that? Why don't you just be a singer? You're the great singer. I said, well, I waited later till I was about 18. And I sat down with her and I said, Mom, I wasn't that happy as a child. When you and Dad divorced when I was 6 years old, it was traumatic, devastating. One day I have this father putting me on his shoulders, running through the house going, hi, yo, Silver. And he was doing impressions of Festus from Gunsmoke, Ken Curtis, who we're related to. And that was the first impression I ever heard. And my dad would sit and do impressions. And then I started mimicking him when I was 3 years old on his knee. There's some recordings of that on an 8-track that my dad has. And he inspired me. And I told my mom, like, I can see myself making people happy because I was really sad as a child from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when I was like 12 years old, I wrote a poem called A Lonely Child. And one day I got a pop-up on the internet that said, poetry.com is having a nationwide poet search. And my wife said, you should put that old sad poem you wrote when you were a kid, A Lonely Child, in. Well, guess what? I won the contest. I just entered it and I won it. And Florence Henderson from the Brady Bunch sends me an email and says, hello, Mr. Curtis, of thousands of poets around the world, your poem, A Lonely Child, has touched the hearts of not only our judges, but had everyone crying in the office, including me. And I'm like, Florence freaking Henderson, Brady Bunch, I'm freaking
That's
out.
awesome.
So yeah, I won it, and it's out there floating around somewhere. I was so proud, and it thanks to my ex-wife just telling me. And I sat down and wrote that in 5 minutes when I was a kid, and it really makes you cry at the end. You know, it says, "I was that lonely boy who cried walking home from school every day. But when it starts out, today was Father's Day at school, and everybody brought their father to tell about their careers. And I didn't have, my father had divorced my mom and he didn't know about it. She didn't tell him. And I just poetically write. I never wrote poetry in my life. And I'm just a kid and I'm just writing a paragraph and I'm walking to school crying. And my dad can't be here today. And this kid named Steve, and it's a true story, Steve, I'll never forget him, the bully of the class. Where's your dad, kid? Like, you don't have a dad, do you? And I just remember feeling broken and that being bullied. And from that moment on, I was bullied and my mom talked about that in the Kings of Tupelo. She's like, the kids didn't like Kevin. He got picked on a lot. And that is why I started taking karate at McCoy Karate Studio in Natchez. That's where I got my green belt. I still have my green belt in the laundry room. My belts are stacked up, and that's a third belt, like from the bottom. And Eli McCoy was my karate instructor. I remember he broke 8 bricks with his head when I was 14 years old. I'm like, you are the baddest ass in the world. But yes, I had a lonely childhood, and that's probably how I mastered the art of impression. And I would sit alone and 8 hours a night, come home from school, never played football, never played baseball, never went to PE in school. Like, everything was music. I was the choir boy that was picked on. Kevin's in choir. Why don't you take football? And I'm like, I don't know. I like to sing, I guess. And
Right.
and my choir director, Dell Owens, he took me to his home. He said, "You're the first student I've ever taken to my house." And he said, I hope I don't get in trouble, but thank your mother for bringing you. But he said, I want to give you private voice lessons. I see something extra special in you. I hear something in your voice that I've never heard in any student that I've ever, trained and taught music to. And he became my mentor. And boy, like, he would get angry in class. He would slam stuff down. He would scream at me in front of all the other students. But it was like I became his son. He had no children. And I didn't get upset. It didn't hurt my feelings when I was 11, 12, 13, literally from 4th grade until 11th grade. He was my choir director. He gave me the lead role in every play. Everyone, there were petitions would be filed against me, and they would send it throughout the school to all the parents. We petitioned against Paul Kevin Curtis having the lead in Scrooge and having the lead in the teen play Ryan as the teen. We did a musical called Teen. Being a teen, just a stage in between being a teen. And I literally remember the damn lyrics from grammar school. And there were multiple times that parents would petition. In 8th grade, I was petitioned by the parents, do not let Paul Kevin Curtis enter the 8th grade talent contest. Why, my mother says? My mother goes to the school board. Why are parents sending out a petition for all parents to sign to keep my son Kevin out of the talent show? Kevin sings. He loves to sing. He's won 15 contests. And the principal of the school says, well, Mrs. Curtis, the parents seem to feel that Kevin's on a professional level because he's been to the state competitions in Jackson. He won 1st place. He's been in the newspaper. They just don't feel it's fair. I hope you understand. My mother contacts the mayor, the congressman. She sends letters out and she fights this. And in the end of the story, I enter the contest and I win 1st place. And I think the picture shown in the documentary of me holding my 1st place trophy. I'm standing in the middle, and there's the 2nd place winner on the left, the 3rd place winner on the right. And they're like this. they're just defeated that right. I was allowed to enter. And I wasn't cocky. I was the nicest, most shy, humble 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader you would ever meet. When I was the lead singer in the only rock band, I was humble. I was so happy and thrilled that there was only one rock band in Natchez, Mississippi, and I was the front man, and they chose me. Like, I don't know. I went from the biggest geek nerd, the guy that they wanted to beat up every day. I was pushed and shoved from third grade on up to 10th grade. You know, when I started taking martial arts, I guess word got around. You know, I remember the biggest guy in school in 10th grade came and he pushed me just like David Lee Daniels pushed me back. And he goes, I hear you know karate. And I'm like, yeah, I've taken martial arts. So, and I'm like, what's your problem? Like, I barely even know you, Alan. And this guy looked like he bench pressed transmissions for a living. Like his forearm, man, his forearm was like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, man, I didn't even know about steroids
Watch
back
out.
then, but he had to take them. But anyway, I just walked straight forward. I put my nose touching his nose, and I'm like, whatever you want to do, Alan, you know, just do it. There's a lot of people watching. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Okay. Like, just do it. Just do it. Let's not talk about it. He backs up, tilts his head like, no problem, man. Like, I was just messing with you. So
It's like, oh crap, this guy can go.
yeah, I called him out on it, you know.
Yeah.
But the first time I called someone out was fourth grade. It's how I met my best lifelong friend, Dwayne. He was getting bullied, called little fat poor pig. It was like the first week of school, didn't know him. His big toe was coming out of his shoe. And the guy walks up to him and said, you're a little poor fat pig. Your mama can't even afford to buy you a pair of shoes. Your toes are sticking out. You stink. I even smell you. Do you even have water at your house? I walk up, get in between them, and I say, why don't you say that to me? And I'm just this little, like 30-pound, scrawny, bony kid. And he's this big old guy, you know, like, I mean, he's a huge guy in class. And the first bully I took on, his name was Steven. So Steve and Steven, both bullies. That's how I met Dwayne. He's like, man, he told me later that day, thank you so much. I was scared to death. I almost pissed in my pants. And I'm like, it wasn't right, man. Like, what's your name? He's like, I'm Dwayne Richardson. I shake his hand. I said, hey, there's a photographer that works for the Natchez Democrat named Dwayne Richardson. He's taking pictures of me when I was a little kid for the Natchez Democrat. He's like, oh, that's cool. You've been in the paper? I'm like, yeah, several times. And he's like, that's awesome. You're famous, man. I've got a famous friend. This story will give you chills. The end of the story, we walk out that day. It's raining, and a teacher walks up to us and says, Kevin, you're going to have to ride home with this lady that's in nursing school with your mother. Your mother's been in a little car accident. She's at Jeff Davis Hospital. I'm like, oh God, my mom, is she okay? Is she alive? Yes, she's okay. She's just bruised up. But Janice Richardson is in her nursing class at Colin College. They take nursing. I'm like, and Dwayne looks at me and goes, my mom's at Colin taking nursing. And so the teacher walks us out to their old beat up car. And she gets out of the car and she goes, hello. She shakes my hand and she's like, Dwayne, okay, we're going to be taking him home to his house. I've got his address. I've got a map. You know, there's no GPS back then. She had literally went and bought a map at the local store.
Right.
So she takes me home. We become lifelong friends. What are the odds that my mom and his mom had been in nursing for like 7 or 8 weeks together, and that we would hit it off, me taking up for him as from the class bully, but we were friends until the day he died. He died in his sleep. Like December the 27th, I believe, of 2007, I believe it was. He was like 38 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah, thank you. I got to see him July 4th, the year that he passed. And I just picked up the phone. I went to visit a friend of mine in Natchez, and we were karaokeing. And I said, man, I wonder where my friend Dwayne is. I haven't seen him in years. and I pick up the phone and I found Errol Richardson, his older brother. He was in Ferry, Louisiana. I said, that's his brother. I'll call him. I bet he'll know. So I call Errol. He picks up the phone. Dwayne just happens to be visiting from Texas.
Oh, wow.
And like I start talking like, no way, man. Like, oh my God, you're in Natchez. That's a 35, 40-minute drive. He jumps in the car in his sweaty, dirty t-shirt. He flies to Natchez. We karaoke and have drinks until 7 o'clock in the morning, pass out. We talk about everything that happened in our childhood. He cries, I cried. And I said, man, you need to come to Boonville, Mississippi. And I said, I own my own business. I said, I can hire you to clean floors. I can pay you $10, $15 an hour. We could have the best time of our lives, man, like old times. And he's like, well, I'm fighting for custody of my kids right now. My ex-wife got custody. I've raised them for 9 years. She's never even visited them, but she married a guy that's got a lot of money and they got a good attorney. And I don't, I'm just barely making it right now. And I go, man, I hate to hear that, but the offer stands. And then the next thing I know, I get a phone call and someone tells me, Dwayne Rich. I'm like, yeah, it's only been my best friend since third grade. Yeah, they buried him last week in Natchez. I'm like, I couldn't even register. I couldn't even think. That's when my daughter saw me cry for the first time in her life. And I didn't even get to make it to his funeral. So I call up his mother and I go, if anyone can be found on the internet, it's Kevin Curtis. You guys couldn't find me to shoot an email or myspace.com or Yahoo, or like I was on every platform there was. Mm-hmm. And they go, we tried to find you, but we couldn't. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that deal was, but then get this. I went to the I went to the Natchez Cemetery with my friend Barbara, who we were karaoke in. Now, before I knew he died, we went out to the Natchez Cemetery where the famous turning angel is. And I climbed up on the angel. I said, take a picture of me. It was 11:59, and she had one of those Kodak disposable cameras. Right. And I said, you know what they say at 12 o'clock midnight, the angel turns. That's the myth. And things happen. I said, so right at midnight, just start snapping. And she's like, okay, Karen, whatever. And I jump up on the turning angel. Click, 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 click. Right at midnight, she starts clicking. We start walking past the angel, just looking. I said, I have family buried out here. And so we went to my aunt and one of my uncles. And I'm like, yeah, this is where my friend Dwayne and I played in the old charity hospital they say is haunted. And at this point, it was burned down by kids who were playing and lighting fires in it. But it wasn't staying. I said, but when we were kids, Barbara, we would play and there would be doctor coats and syringes in there and stethoscopes back from the 60s and 70s and old antiques, vintage stuff. It was the coolest place for kids to play. Dangerous, too, because there were syringes everywhere. But I said, me and Dwayne spent half our lives out here at the cemetery. This is where our go-to place in the charity hospital. We would pretend, would play hide and seek. And little did I know, I walked 3 feet from Dwayne's grave. I stepped 3 feet over his grave. He was buried there. And I'm talking, thinking he's still alive and out there. He had died, and I didn't know it.
Oh.
It was just a few days later that I got the call from a mutual classmate. But anyway, back to our questions. I screenshotted a few notes. Is it okay if I just mention a couple of things?
Sure.
Okay. Organ harvesting. When I started digging into it, there was not one video, not one article on black market organ harvesting from 1999, 2000, 2001, 2000, all the way up to 2004 or 5. That's when, after Fox News, Shepard Smith did that, then the investigation started. Now, there's a documentary out on like HBO or something now where this bald-headed guy is claiming that he tipped off investigators to Michael Mastromarino. He's a liar, and I'll tell him that to his face, just like I told Dusky. He was a liar, saying he would print any story, no matter how controversial. I said, you, Mr. Dusky, are a liar. And then he's like, he took off his tie, he turned red, he started sweating. Don't call me a liar. I'm like, that's what you are. No offense, but your statement of value, your core beliefs and everything, it's a lie. Like, you will not interview me because you're saying now you're running against Steve Holland. You want to be a congressman, and it's too controversial. What that goes again? Don't print that. Don't say it. So this guy, I watched the documentary on HBO, and he's literally boasting, yeah, I am the guy who leaked the story to an investigator, and it would never had come out without me. Well, he's saying this 5 years after I sent Fox and every news media and every journalist, every FBI investigators, LA, Chicago, New York, Florida. I put out Michael Mastromarino's name. Nobody had ever heard of him. He was a dentist, okay, and an oral surgeon, and he found a way to get contracts with multiple funeral homes all over the place, from New York to Florida, New Jersey. And he was contracted so he would go in without hazmat suits. And that's why he died of cancer while he was incarcerated. He wasn't in prison long, but I called him on the phone. I spoke to him. I know what his voice sounds like. I know what his wife, Barbara's voice sounds like. She knows me. They felt threatened. They hung up on me. They wouldn't talk with me. There's a reason for that. So I come up with this theory in my head. There has to be a black market for bone, tissue, and organ, not just your lung, your liver, the normal organs that people donate. I have nothing against that. When I was a teenager, first thing I said to my mom, I'm going to be an organ donor. When something happens to me, I hope I can save somebody's life. And who knows, maybe if one day my brain can be transplanted and my heart, and I will be reincarnated. I'd make jokes about it, but I was all for being an organ donor for years. So I started putting the word out and sending all my information in. Well, then 4 years later, Michael Mastromarino is arrested. He is indicted on multiple charges, and he got 25 years. This is the first time in history. So you're going to love this. 3 days ago, I'm standing in the kitchen. I'm loading the dishwasher, and I have this Alexa sitting in the window, and I go, Alexa, who blew the whistle? Who's the first whistleblower to the black market of organ harvesting? There was a 30-second pause, which has never happened. She always answers me like that. And I'm like, Alexa, are you there? I ask her the same question again, and I record it. I record it and put it on Facebook. I record it live, and it says, Paul Kevin Curtis from Mississippi is the alleged whistleblower to the black market organ. It didn't say bone tissue. It said organ harvesting. And he was allegedly arrested and falsely charged with allegations of, and I recorded it. It's there now, like on my Facebook page and on my phone.
Oh, wow.
And okay, but first she says a man in India was the first person arrested for black market organ harvesting. I put my phone up and I go, okay, I'm going to ask you again, Alexa. I think you stand corrected. Wasn't Michael Mastromarino the first man ever arrested and indicted? Alexa says, I stand corrected. You are right.
No way.
It was Michael. Yes, I've got it. Look at my Facebook page. Scroll down and you'll see it.
Check that out.
On my Facebook live stream. So she said, I stand corrected. You are right. Michael Mastromarino is the first person in history to ever go to prison and be indicted on these. I am the insider. I am the secret. You know what? Someone told me the other day, Kevin, shut up. Maybe God is protecting you, and it's safer for your name not to get out there. And I thought for a second, go, holy crap, maybe you're right. Maybe there is an entity out there protecting me. Maybe God is sending his powers down to keep me down on the down low. I mean, yeah, Netflix, I finally got my story to the largest platform in the world, Streamline, but my name, Paul Kevin Curtis, has not officially been linked to the whistleblower like Dr. Jeffrey Wigand is officially linked to being the whistleblower of Browns and William Tobacco, enough to where they made the Insider movie with Russell Crowe and Al Pacino. I've spoken with Dr. Jeffrey Wigand several times on the phone, by the way, and just like Dr. Patch Adams, these famous people, they know who I am. I spoke with Charlie Sheen for 15 minutes right after I got framed. I received a crate full of every kind of liquor that you could imagine in a wooden crate when I was living in public housing.
You were talking to Charlie Sheen after the whole incident?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got a hold of his agent. In turn, his agent got him, and they called me on the phone. I recorded it. And I'm like, this is a joke. Like, and the agent is telling me, no, Mr. Curtis, this is not a joke. Mr. Sheen is he's very interested in what's happening with you and you being framed in this presidential assassination plot. Well, little did I know that Charlie Sheen had written a letter to Obama about the 9/11 being an inside job. And Charlie Sheen said, I have questions, Obama.
Yeah.
And I have family members who have questions that died in those buildings. And building number 7 never was hit by a plane, never any sparks. But why did it collapse demolition style within seconds and never been touched by a plane? And the things that were housed in building number 7 were CIA documents connected to the John F. Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, and the same thing with the Pentagon. There were no plane fragments. Charlie Sheen was famous. He wasn't like me, a local famous person. Just everybody knows Kevin as Elvis and the master of impressions for 20 years in Mississippi. Nobody knew me in Canada. Nobody knew me in Russia or Jamaica. Everybody knew Charlie Sheen, and for him to have the balls to look into the camera and say, I demand answers, President Obama. And here's what I tell Charlie Sheen and his agent on speakerphone. I said, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you through the phone and talk with you. I am overwhelmed, and I appreciate you calling me. I had been putting out a lot of, I had mentioned many people's names. I had dropped Charlie Sheen's name, Mel Gibson, a lot of people that were up in your face in Hollywood, you know, not the people on the down low. They know what's happening. They're famous, but they're not going to say anything. I've met those famous people in person and sat in a room with them also. And they literally broke out in tears and said, I talked to a model that's on the cover of these famous magazines, and her husband is a famous stuntman, Hollywood stuntman, and literally at a gathering of justice and truth in Birmingham, Alabama, she's crying and she's like, I just wish that I could be like you and just tell it like it is. I know things. I've seen things. And she's sobbing. And I'm just quaintly smiling like, it's okay. I mean, you do what you feel you need to do. Everybody's not born to be a whistleblower. Everybody's not made up to be an activist. You know, my ex-wife said, I'm not going to be married to a white Martin Luther King whistleblowing activist. And she meant it. And she left me.
Yeah.
She walked out on our marriage, and I loved that woman. I was in love with my wife, and I wanted us and our 4 children to live that American dream for the next 80 years. And I mean, it destroyed me when she left me. And when I married her, I wasn't in love with her. I loved a thousand things about her, and the way old people loved her. Every senior citizen we passed, they just clung to her. And we baked cakes for people and brought them to the nursing homes and cookies, and just little old ladies and men just oh, they just like a magnet to her. And I said, I like that about you. I like that wit that you have with senior citizens. You really do care about them. And that's how we hit it off as friends, and then morphed into a relationship. But I wasn't madly in love with her. And I told her that on our wedding day. And that goes back to another thing I wanted to mention that Netflix did not mention. And I begged them to mention this because since 1985, I have held this secret inside my heart and my mind, and only my family and close friends knew. I was in a motorcycle accident in 1985. I was 17 years old. I just bought a Honda XL500. My girlfriend at the time, that met me from coming to the teen dances where my band and I would play, she's like, "Oh my God, you look just like Prince when you put your makeup on, and you sound exactly like him. I love Prince. Oh, he's the best." And that's how we met. And she looked just like Madonna. And so we got Prince and Madonna riding on the motorcycle. It was so cool back in 1985. And 1 week after I purchased a motorcycle, I'm new at being a biker. I didn't know it all. And she says, "Oh, my family is in from Texas. Can you please drive me to Faraday, Louisiana?" And that was across the Mississippi Bridge, which was a mile and a half long. And I go, "I don't know. I mean, I've never driven an hour and a half. I just drive to Pizza Hut to work and to the band rehearsals, like in school. Oh, I was the dough master at Pizza Hut now." 7 years of Pizza Hut. My first job when I was 15 years old, and my name tag, dough master. I mean, nobody could flip the dough like KC. Right. So she says to me, "If you don't take me to see my family, I'm going to get my ex-boyfriend who has a car, and he's going to come." And I'm like, I'm a teenager, and I'm like, "Hell no, no boyfriend gonna pick you up." Right. No. And I said, "Okay, let's go outside." I had 3 helmets. I put my helmet on. I said, here's yours. Let's go. I crank it up. She goes, "Oh my God, my hair is going to be so windblown, Kevin. When we get to Faraday, I'm going to look like a witch. I'm just not going to wear a helmet." I said, "You've got to wear a helmet. That's illegal not to wear a helmet in Mississippi." And she's like, "Well, we'll be in Louisiana. It's probably not illegal when we cross the bridge." And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't feel good about this. And she cried, oh, and then she said, "Okay, I'm going to go, and I'm going to call my ex-boyfriend, Jeff, and he'll drive me." And I'm like, "Okay, let's get on." Big mistake. A mile or two down the interstate, Highway 61 South, Natchez, Mississippi, I'm at 55 miles per hour. The speedometer light starts blinking. The headlight starts blinking. My engine stalls. I hit the clutch. I drop down to 4. Last thing I see is 48 miles per hour, and I'm veering to the right just a little bit. There's no street lights. It's cars coming from the other side, cars coming up behind me. I can't see anything. The headlight blows, the speedometer, everything's out. I can't see anything. And then, boom, I hit a concrete curb head on at almost 50 miles per hour, and my helmet cracked like an apple right here, and my skull cracked that much. I cracked my skull.
Holy smokes.
My girlfriend, Madonna, flies down the interstate and loses her face, literally rips her face off. Like this is a horror movie. Wow. I see when I finally find her and I pick her up, I'm waiting for headlights from cars because there's no street lights. We're in the jet black. And when the car light hit her face, I saw skeletal her skeletal fragment. I saw her jawbones. I saw her lip was severed in two. Her teeth were missing. Her head was split open. I saw her forehead bone fragments. And I don't know how I kept it together, but she said, "Am I okay?" And I go, "You are fine." And I'm covered in blood. I've got rocks in my skin from here. I was protected from here up. I had a shield on my helmet, but my helmet cracked like an apple. And I didn't know my skull was cracked. For years and years, I never had an x-ray. They didn't x-ray me at the hospital because I didn't have insurance. They're like, "Where do you work?" "Pizza Hut." "I'm the dough master." Like, "You have insurance?" "I don't have insurance." Back then, bye.
Right.
You can't do that now. You don't turn down now. But she was in intensive care in critical condition. And when I saw her, she was a mummy from the neck up. All you could see were two holes here and two holes where her nose was and a little hole here, and just drooling and blood oozing out of the bandages, a mummy. And the doctor pulls me aside and he says, "We've contacted her parents. Her dad's on his way from Texas. The mom doesn't have a car. She's going to have to wait till he picks her up." I'm like, well, I don't know how we got there. Get this, a man in black with this beautiful and very expensive car pulls over. One person out of hundreds passing us on the highway. He pulls over. He looks exactly like an FBI agent. He has a cell phone in 1985, walks out. It is a wireless, there's no cord. He has a phone. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I didn't say that. I was thinking that. But I'm sitting there just covered in blood. She's covered in blood. I'm still holding her. My adrenaline was flowing. I held her for like an hour. And he saw her and he's like, "Oh God." He's 911. He said, "I can't put you in my car. You need to just lay her down. Both of you need to not move. You don't know what kind of internal injuries you have." I'm like, "Thank you so much for helping us." And I wasn't even thinking like a cell phone. Like, it was a cordless phone. And did that even exist? Or did I dream this? I mean,
I think one of the men in black stopped to help you out.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
yeah.
like. Tommy Lee Jones.
Was I on the watch list back then? Did I make the watch list when I was jumping on the trampoline at 5?
Yeah. Oh man, that's terrible. Well, Kevin, we've come to a portion of our show that we like to call Jared's 5. Jared's 5. So Jared's going to ask you 5 questions. One of them is going to be from the previous guest, and you'll also have a question for the next guest that comes on the show. Does that sound fun?
Sounds great, man.
All right.
Cool. Ready to rock and roll. All right, first one. What's your favorite movie of all time?
I would say Billy Jack with Tom Laughlin.
Yeah.
Ever seen it?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a little quick story, and I'll make this 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I came down with cancer right here above my eyebrow. It was a malignant melanoma cancer. I went to a cancer center in Tupelo, and this guy was a laser doctor, friends with my brother. Everybody's friends with my brother, and they did the biopsy tests, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we need to get this removed ASAP. We need to get you in for surgery," and I'm like, this is right after I sued the hospital. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going under the knife for the first time in my life, connected to the North Mississippi Medical Center. And his door had the emblem of the NMMC and the cross. So I'm like, no way am I going under the knife after I sued the hospital. So I went home and I found Tom Laughlin's phone number, website, and I contacted his daughter. Emailed me back, and then I gave them a call. She gave me a private number, and I called and I told them what happened. And she said, "Oh, my dad has studied He's out of the country right now, but he has studied this, how to get rid of cancer, how to be cancer free, and then he's a master of all this. So my idol from childhood and hero, Billy Jack, Tom Laughlin, he's contacted by his daughter, and then he sends her an email back and tells her of a solution of me to make with baking soda, hydrogen peroxide, white vinegar, and something else that I mixed up and then put and heated up, mixed together into a paste, and then make an incision into the cancer and saturate this and then put a gauze over it for 24 hours. Man, I've got pictures of it on my phone right now. Before, there is no scar whatsoever. Within 3 weeks, it was completely gone. I go back and get tested. No cancer, no sign. Doctors looking pissed off. Like, right. What the hell? Like, you're going to put us out of work? Like, what's going on? But thank you, Tom Laughlin in heaven. When he passed, a piece of me left. But yeah, that's favorite movie, Billy Jack. Secondly, Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
All right. Favorite cartoon.
Favorite cartoon? I'm gonna say Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? Yes. And if it wasn't for you, what was the tagline?
If it wasn't for you, crazy kids or something. Yeah,
you crazy kids, I would have gotten away with it.
All right. What is one thing people should know about you that maybe they
don't? Well, like we were just talking about the end of the motorcycle accident story. I told my brother the day after my mom passed about my cracked skull that he never knew. He knew I'd had a motorcycle accident that was really bad in '85, but it was only in the last 4 or 5 years that I got the MRI and went to a specialist, a spine lumbar specialist, because I started getting massive headaches, throwing up for hours, going to the ER over and over. And I knew in my heart it was related to the motorcycle accident, but I just didn't want to face it because I used some of my martial arts training, mind over matter, for 35 years. I have speakers in here, 75 pounds, 150-pound buffers, 200-pound floor scrubbers I picked up and put out of my van for 16 years. And doctors told me in '85, now, you hit the curb head on. You're just 17 years old. When you get older, you hit 40, 50 years old, young man, you're going to have some arthritis, most likely in your neck, your head, your spine. I didn't listen to that. I lifted everything. I hit the punching bag. I did my scissor kicks and roundhouses and trained in martial arts and kickboxing. Oh my God. I mean, I had no limitation. No way is way. Bruce Lee. I never let that defeat me. I never even acknowledge it. It's like Prince. He said, I don't celebrate birthdays. And people will say, you look so young. You look so young. Well, I don't celebrate my birthday. So there's no biological clock going on in my brain saying, you're 1 year older today. So when Prince died, he still looked 25 years old. But that's the mentality. That's the mindset that I have. I mean, I'm 58 years old. And I have people 25 years old like hitting on me and sending me marital proposals. And when I tell them how old I am, they're like, oh my God, you're older than my father. And then they go, like, what's your secret? And I say, sweet tea with root of ginger and mint leaves. and get a lot of sleep. Get your 8 hours sleep, But and don't give a damn. Like my whole life, I just didn't give a damn. I didn't worry about stuff. I especially after the motorcycle, you asked me something that I would like people to know about me that they don't know. That is the key to all of this. What made me who I am? What made me unfiltered, truthful, honest to the core? When someone asks, "Do I look fat in this dress?" I'm like, "I'm sure there's another one that makes you look thinner." Okay.
Right.
Um, does this hair color suit me? I'm like, I think you should go with black, not blonde. It would bring out your eyes. Well, you hurt my feelings. The
Just
day I
being
got
honest.
married, the day I got married, an hour before I married Laura, I took her by the arms and I said, I've got to tell you something. I'm still in love with my ex-girlfriend in Chicago. I'm not over her. If you want to call off the wedding, we'll do it. But I cannot marry you today with that on my mind and in my heart. And she just bust out crying. And 45 minutes later, we're standing at the altar, like getting married. But she never let me let that go. Like, why did you tell me that on our wedding day? And my kids chastise me. But I'm brutally honest to the core where I will lose everything from the truth. A, I tell the truth and I gain everything. B, I lie and I I lose it all. So I mean, that's just who I am. And the reason I'm like that and not more like everybody else and just, tell a little white lie and just, I'm unfiltered. I can't help it. The motorcycle accident cracking my skull like that. My brain was in the developmental stages. I was 17 years old. I wasn't 25. I wasn't, 30. So that impact, blunt force trauma, I've looked into it. I've researched and it does change the chemical makeup. So when people say, I think he's bipolar, he should have medication. Well,
Right.
I went 40 years with nothing but a Flintstone vitamin in my system, never took a drug in my life.
Right.
The first time I was forced to take an antidepressant, antipsychotic medication, I went batshit crazy, ripped off my shirt, ran outside, soaking wet with sweat. I felt like my bones were trying to rip out of my body from the inside out. And I said, I'm never touching another antidepressant. I'm not to say that they don't help millions of people in the world, but when you look at cases like Phil Hartman, whose wife was taking Zoloft and drinking whiskey and just decided to walk in and shoot her husband multiple times in the head and
Right.
the chest while he's sleeping and having a nice dream about his upcoming movie. I studied 1,000 cases like that, and I had multiple blogs on MySpace and Facebook for 10 years about the dangers of just going to a therapist and being diagnosed within 15 minutes. Well, you're showing some signs of bipolar, manic depression. We're going to put you on lithium, Jane. And the next thing you know, she takes a baseball bat and beats her husband up. And she doesn't even know why, but she had a couple of drinks and took her antidepressant. They clash.
Right.
They change the chemical makeup of the brain. And depending on your diet, what you're lacking in your diet, if you don't exercise, if you don't do things to keep yourself mentally and physically healthy, then you're going to walk in and shoot your husband like, Phil Hartman's wife did. That I had so many people by the masses thanking me over the years, like, oh, thank you. I've gone deeper into cognitive therapy. And now I realize I don't need the doxepin that I was taking. I left
Mm-hmm.
my husband 6 weeks after I started taking this medication. But I'm very passionate about that because those things changed my life. The motorcycle accident, a choice I made to allow my girlfriend on that motorcycle. It was a 17-year-old jealous choice. I didn't want her to get another guy to drive her, you
Right.
know, and she refused to wear a helmet. She called me up 2 years ago, crying her eyes out. And she said, I'm so sorry that I wouldn't wear a helmet that night. And both of our lives changed forever. And I've never been the same. I know you've never been the same. And I mean, I'm just unfiltered. That's the one thing I think I want people to know. Don't call me crazy. Don't call me a liar. Don't call me bipolar. Don't label me as anything. I crashed into concrete and cracked my skull, and I lived to get a Netflix docuseries and tell 30% of my life story.
Right.
And, it's out there now. And I'm meeting people like you guys, and you guys are sharing the truth. I wholeheartedly believe that you sincerely like the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
The truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I joked with someone one time after I went through the Tony Robbins Personal Power 2 program 30 times in a year. And Tony Robbins talked to me on the phone on QVC. I called in, I ordered something on QVC, and he was there as a guest. And I'm talking to a producer, and I go, "Oh, I've been through the program this many times, and I listen to it every day, 10 hours a day while I'm buffing floors, stripping and waxing, cleaning carpet." And they go, "We're going to let you speak to Mr. Robbins. Please hold." And I'm like, "Oh my God," I'm trying to grab a recorder. I'm turning the TV
My
up.
hero.
And yeah, this is my hero. I love this. My whole life, literally, my income tripled in 1 year after going through the program. My relationship with my wife was enhanced by 90%. My relations with public relations, business wise, throughout the community. I was one of the founding members of the Community Development Foundation in Tupelo, Mississippi. There were only 10 members when I was inducted into it as one of the young, outstanding young businessmen. But that wasn't in the documentary. There's so much that's in my book that people will finally get it and go, "Oh, well, that really does solve the mystery." But the things that I've exposed to you today, that I've given the information, it hasn't been talked about. And so thank you for allowing me this platform, and for you to ask questions, and for it to be unfiltered, uncensored. Uh, and I know you have to edit due to time and all that. And I can appreciate all that. But
I cut hardly anything, man.
There's no really?
Reason to.
Yeah, we kind of have this motto that perfection isn't perfect, man. There's a lot of things that we just don't take out.
No, it's just
I'm
we're
just
talking,
like
we're
that.
telling the truth. I ain't gonna cut shit out. So,
and I, as bad as my ex-wife Laura bashed me in the Kings of Tupelo, I don't think I said anything, bashing about her. I was very respectful. The only thing I said was, what broke my heart is her falling into my brother, and making my brother her God, her King of Kings, and leaving me as my teddy bear girl and becoming my brother's backup singer. So many things that just killed my heart. And it turned me against my brother. And my brother was my Tony Robbins my whole life. He was my go-to guy. He was my hero. Everything my brother touched turned to gold. Everyone loved him. Like every sport he played, he was the best at basketball, baseball, football, trophies in the high school. And when I went into choir in high school, they said, "If you can sing like Jack Curtis, your brother, we have it made with a chamber choir and the Natchez Singers." Well, 6 months later, I get inducted into the chamber choir and the Natchez Singers. And the choir director says to me, "Holy crap, like, oh, we done found gold." I had a 4-octave voice range. So she would sit and hit the bottom note on the piano and go all the way to the top. And I'd go from C, low C, and then hit falsetto up into high C and hit the highest note on the piano. And she said, I've never heard that ever in a person do that. And so she and Dell Owens both, they worked together and gave me private voice lessons. And you gotta thank people like that. Give credit where credit is due. But back to my ex-wife, the one thing she said that was positive, not on the documentary, but to my face, she said, "I've always noticed one thing about you, Kevin." And she's kind of laughing, but when she said it, she said, "And this is why your brother, you get under his skin, and you get under so many people's skin, is you're one of those naturalists that you try something the first time, whether it be golf, horseshoes, and you ace it. The first time you went bowling, you got 3 strikes in the first round, and you had never picked up a bowling ball. That does not happen, and that's why people can't stand you. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Tone myself down and not be me, and try less? My brother challenged me at horseshoes 25 years ago, and I beat him at a park. And I remember him thinking, he said, "Have you ever played?" And I go, "No, I've never in my life picked up a horseshoe." And I was just nailing them. And Laura said, "That's one thing." And she said, "When you went to the recording studio that first time in Mooreville, Mississippi, and you made your first demo to go out and sell at all your shows," she said, you came home that day like 4 hours later, and you had the entire CD finished, and you told me you did 3 songs in one take." She said, "Who does that, Kevin?" She said, "That's who you are. That's why people don't like you." And she goes, "I'm just letting you know it's a wonderful thing." But she said, "Always remember, don't keep going over a song," because she heard me practice in a song one time 5 times, a new song that somebody challenged me. They said, "I bet you can't do Ozzy Osbourne," after I'd done 25 impressions at a live show in front of 500 people. They love to throw out, "Come on, do some AC/DC. Let me hear you sound like that." And Laura said, "Just look at you, like you come back the next week and you nail it." And she said, "Go with the first time." And I took her advice, and to this day, I give her credit on this. When I do a new song and I add it to my roster, I'll just do it once. I'll record it once and lay it down. That's it. Now, I'll post it. Every video you will see on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you will never in your life see take 2, take 3. It's the first take. Because like you, I feel like that's the raw, honest piece right there.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, that's the whole thing right there.
You go back and try to polish it up, it just gets weaker and weaker and weaker.
It's not authentic anymore.
No.
Got it.
2 more questions.
Bingo. Okay.
All right. If you can go back in time and tell your teenage self one thing, what would it be?
Don't open the refrigerator in the morgue.
Oh man.
But it's led to this, man. I mean, come on. It's like Tony Robbins says, all the decisions you've ever made has led you to your life now. So if you changed any one of those things, your life wouldn't be what it is today. Right?
That's true. That was my journey and my choices. And I wonder sometimes, I ask myself, had I not cracked my skull, I'm going to ask you, if you cracked your skull when you were a teenager, and I didn't tell you the second part of that. I had a concussion and I slept for 3 days. So I'm out Tuesday night. I wake up Friday and I'm at my sister's apartment. And I'm like, "Where am I?" And she's like, "You're at my apartment, Kevin. Like, there was a bad motorcycle accident. Do you remember?" I go, "Yeah, this guy in black had a telephone. He called the ambulance and they were there within like 10 minutes. And that's all I remember. The door is shut. I don't remember being in the hospital. I'm pretty sure I never got treated or looked at, but Stacy was hurt bad. Like, she looked like a mummy when I left." She's like, "Oh yeah, she's in bad shape. She has to have plastic surgery and skin grafts. They're taking her skin from her rear end and putting it on her face." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So it was so much guilt from that. But I literally woke up that third day, guys, a different person. When I say that, I was unfiltered and honest to the brutal core. And I went from this shy guy that I didn't speak to anyone until they spoke to me. If I went to a club, I didn't just go up, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Cave Curtis. How you?" I'm the guy that just sat at the bar, with a drink and sipped on it, listening to the music, kind of looking around, checking out the environment, kind of nervous. Like, I wasn't that socialite. I wasn't spontaneous. I wasn't open. And I mean, look at me. Listen to how I'm talking to you. Look at me on Kings of Tupelo. Right. That's who I am now, how I've been since 1985. But from 1967 to 1985, I was this guy just like please don't speak to me. Please don't notice me. I don't want to stand out in the crowd. When people started asking me for autographs at my shows 25, 30 years ago, I just panicked. I was shaking. Like they probably thought I dropped out of school in first grade. I was scared to death. I was, and when I turned like 25, I literally asked. I was doing a show. It was 20,000 people at a rodeo, and there was hundreds of people lined up. And I'm thinking I'm gonna be here at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was there till 2 a.m. signing autographs. Tim McGraw was just one block over doing a concert at 10 o'clock that night, and I told them, I said, I just don't like signing autographs. And they were like, why? You are amazing. Oh my God. Like, I just feel like I saw Kenny Chesney, Roy Orbison, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Vince Gill, and Prince all at one time. And I didn't pay but for one show. And I'm like, thank you for the compliment, but I'm no better than you. I'm on the same level as you. And then I would say, can I have your autograph? I think you're amazing. And they would be
That's
like,
cool.
okay, this is weird. There's the guy that's amazing. Like they would just tell me I was the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm just sitting there like, this is what I've done since I was 6 years old in my music room. Just another thing, after the motorcycle accident, I sat down at a piano and just hit the chords, and like I've never played a piano in my life, and I just thought of a song, and I can't remember what it was, but I just started playing and singing a song, and I played it from the beginning to the end. I think I hit two wrong keys, and I sat there with chills, covered my entire body, going, "How did this happen?" Like I've never in my life thought about playing a piano, and I'm playing a piano, and I don't think I'm his, but two keys. Who does that?
Right.
Unsolved Mysteries. Unsolved Mysteries offered me $50,000 for my story 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I turned them down.
Yeah, gotta go a little higher.
I turned down HBO, Lifetime. Jesus, there was like 7 or 8 they're big Unsolved Mysteries, and I watched Unsolved Mysteries my whole life growing up. But something about something they said in the contract, I think it was exclusive. They wanted me to sign something exclusive, and I said no. I said somebody tried that with me 5 years ago, and I refused to sell my story exclusively, where I cannot talk about this. I cannot talk about my book. I cannot write my book. You own me for this amount of time.
Right.
So
you're like, have you met me?
Right.
That ain't gonna happen. All right. So last question from our previous guest, and I gotta preface this because our last guest was our wives. So the question was, and this is a rocket science question: does the toilet paper go over or under when you put it back on?
Yeah, our wives hammered us in episode 1 of season 2.
Well, there may be 2 answers to the question. And it's funny because I had this debate last week with a room full of people in the living room upstairs. And literally, I had placed the toilet paper where it comes under. And that's my preference. It comes under, not over. And my guest comes in and he says, I just want you to let you know you have your toilet paper in the wrong position. It's the other way around. And I walked in there, and sure enough, he flipped it on me.
Yeah.
And I flipped it back. And I'm like,
house.
You're one of those toilet paper under guys, aren't you? You're doing it wrong.
It's funny.
I did you guys Google it?
Yeah, I actually looked it up. It's supposed to be over, but it's because of people with cats or something that they flip it the other way, because you'll find the whole roll on the floor or something. Yeah,
exactly. Cats, rabbits, and babies.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. So last one is, what's your question for our next guest?
Will I know who the guest is?
Nope. Nobody ever
Okay,
does.
mystery guest.
Hmm.
Male or female? Or in between?
Is the male.
It's me. Give you that much.
What?
He's a doctor.
What? Is he a doctor? For real?
I don't think it's a doctor in the sense of like works in a doctor's office.
Medical surgeon doctor.
Right. I think
Like
it's
a doctor on wild hogs.
PhD instead of MD.
Yeah, I think it's a PhD instead of MD. So I don't think it's healthcare related at all.
Cool. Oh, that's cool. My question to the doctor. Can it be a two-part question?
Sure.
Sure.
All right. Have you seen the Kings of Tupelo? And if so, do you believe that the Elvis guy is 100% honest? Like, do you believe this is authentic or not staged up and scripted for hits, for money, for a story, for Netflix or for Kevin to get famous and to be a household name for a while? I mean, just something along those lines, like, where is his mind if he saw it? Now, if he didn't see it, gotta go to part C, I guess. Do you believe that there is a black market in organ harvesting? I mean, that's pretty much been proven, hasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it kills me when people say, and they ask me, do you really think this is happening? I mean, I look at them and say, haven't I proved it? Like 20 years ago, I told thousands of people in Northeast Mississippi to Louisiana to Chicago, I said, I'm not going to shut up about this. I'm going to talk about it 7 days a week to somebody. When I go to the mall, while I'm buying a t-shirt, I'm just going to open up the door and about a severed head in a refrigerator and watch people's expression. And that's what I did. And I'd have 50 people standing behind me going, holy hell, what's he talking about? Like, this guy's flipped out. He's definitely off his medication. And so that's where that widespread. And when my brother said on when he did an interview when I was in prison, April the 20th of 2013, national TV, like 50 cameras all over the world have showed up. And he said, and his friend, my former attorney that terminated our relationship, when I told him, I went to the court today, Mr. Wade, and I researched your name in the dockets on the computer, and the North Mississippi Medical Center came up 50-something times showing you have represented doctors, nurses, and other employees at the hospital, and you are currently representing employees of the hospital. How can you represent me when I'm suing the entity for $16 million? He picked up his file, he smiled, and he said, you're a young, talented, good-looking young man. You have a good life ahead of you. Here's your file. I wish you all the best in the world, but I am no longer your attorney. Have a good day. He never spoke to me again. Now, the reason he told my brother went to him and said, oh my God, I turned on the TV set, this morning, and Kevin's in prison for trying to murder Obama, Senator Wicker, and Judge. And I was at my mother's house, and she broke down crying. I've never seen my mother cry. Okay. Jim Wade, the criminal defense attorney that's never, ever lost a case in his entire career, on the cover of some magazines in New York City, a legal magazine, multimillionaire, good, smart guy. He he told my brother to say, play this card here. If he did it, we need to say that he is currently off his medication. He ran out, forgot to take them, but make sure you say if my brother did this, if he's guilty, he's off of his medication. So they had a van flew in from Washington waiting outside the prison cell to take me to Washington to undergo a psychiatric evaluation by the government. Now, my new attorney, the female attorney that I fired her in 2016 or 2017, I believe it was. I fired her and her partner, who was a former FBI chief for 20 something years. They were just gatekeepers. They never went to court, never had a trial, swept under the rug, never even had an arbitrary court hearing with just a judge and me and my attorneys and the other attorneys that representing the FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, Postal Police, and the CIA, the FBI. All those entities I sued, I filed a lawsuit against. So he told my brother, play that card. You know, like on the O.J. Simpson case, play the race card and you'll win. Yeah. If it don't fit, you must have quit.
Right.
You know, well, you got it. It won. And so that was, I understand the logic behind it because they were thinking, man, if they get your brother, he was thinking if they get your brother in the system, which they've wanted for years to shut him up, he's never coming out. Right. He's not going to ever come out of the prison system. So Jack kind of panicked and he did whatever Jim Wade said. And he said, thank you all for gathering. He's looking at all the 50 cameras flashing and all the microphones from NBC, ABC, CBS, you know, from all over the world. Vans pulled up. This is huge. It went international. And my brother's in his suit, you know, getting out of work at the insurance company. And he says, I think my brother is innocent of all charges, you know, but if they find something that links my brother to this, you know, it's probably because he's off his medication. Right. And we're trying to find my brother the help he needs. Thank you all. And that put a wedge in between my brother and I. When I watched that, like 3 or 4 weeks later, when I got flown back from New York City doing all the talk shows, I started Googling and I saw that and I was very hurt. And I said, Jack, you know, I'm anti-medication. You know, for the last 40 years, I'm drug-free. I'm anti anything to do with pills that alter your thinking. Because if I took medication, I could not be creative. I could not write songs. I could not come up with the ultimate tribute extravaganza, adding a new act every week to my show. Now I'm up to 70 impressions of 70 legends from the past and present. Nobody in the world has done that. I started that 30 years ago, and I've been polishing that ever since. And Jack said, I'm sorry, but Jim said, do it. That's the only way you're going to get out if you did do it. And they wouldn't let me talk to you. So I didn't know, Kevin. I thought maybe you did snap. Hell, I would have snapped. Jack apologized to me, guys, at a law office with Hal Nielsen in Oxford, Mississippi a few years ago on his wedding anniversary. He left his wife. He came to a meeting with 2 attorneys, FBI agent, and it was about coming back and refiling another lawsuit against 5 federal government agencies for ruining my life, ruining my character, my reputation so much that I had to, where's my cup? Change my name to Wes Hunter. So I did 300 shows in 8 years under the name Wes Hunter. I would check into a hotel where the venue operator director would pay for my room after I performed for 800 people. And I'd go, hi, I'm Wes Hunter. Jill paid for my room with the so-and-so association. Oh, yes. They said you just did amazing. They came in with their teddy bears. Oh, I'd love to hear you do some impressions. So I'm there doing impressions. Oh, I got to see your identification real quick to give you your room key and log you in.
Oh, wow.
I reached for my driver's license. It don't say Wes Hunter.
Right.
It's Paul Kevin Curtis.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, wait, we have a problem. You are not who is on the right. So they call the director.
Right.
Oh boy.
I said I tried to play it down and say it's just a stage name.
Right. Stage name.
And so they call the director, and then they Google me and go, "Oh my God, who have we hired to entertain our crowd? This guy is linked to terrorism." See,
so how has the
never
relationship
exonerated.
Okay, so they because the way I understand it from watching the Kings of Tupelo, I was just kind of left with the impression the way that the directors and the producers had everything done here. It looked to me as if, they kind of hinted around child molestation with that guy, right, Everett, and then they put him in the federal prison, as you mentioned, right? But they kind of left us with the impression that, they kind of left us with the impression that everything was kind of all good. But how has they even show gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. The guy that owned the morgue, right? They're showing him in the audience of one of your shows. Yeah, they're
very creepy.
They're showing Holland at your show, and everything's all good, and you had enemies, and everybody except Everett is watching you and Double Trouble and all this stuff. So how has the relationship with your brother been since the release of Kings of Tupelo? And how are things for Double Trouble and your career?
My brother had said he will never perform. When I gave the famous speech, the corruption speech at Tupelo at the second annual,
the
Elvis
one that
Presley
he told
Tupelo
you
Festival.
not to do, and at the end of the show, right?
Yeah. Well, he didn't know I was going to say anything until the middle of my show when I went back to grab some teddy bears or something, and I said, "I'm going to tell everybody what happened." And he's like, you better not do that right now. Like, that's not a good choice. And I said, I just got out of jail yesterday, shaved my beard. I was urinated on by one of David Lee Daniels' clients who was in jail for something. And he walked up and said, "Yeah, I saw you on TV today. They say you're performing Saturday at some kind of show with your brother." He said, "What would you do if I just pulled out this and took a piss on you?"
Wow.
I didn't say a word. I just smiled, and I looked up at him. I was sitting down. He was standing, and he pulled it out, and he pissed all over my leg. And I just smiled, and I said, "The show goes on. I'm still going to be on that stage." And he just looked at me like, "Man, you are crazy." And he thought I would retaliate. But see, David Daniels had put him up to urinate on me, to provoke me, so I would get sent to lockdown, and I'd be in there indefinitely, and I would have missed the show.
Right.
So a guy from Texas who was in for assaulting a police officer, his name was Jeffrey. He gave me his phone number, his address. He said, "When I get out of here, I want to do the artwork for your book." And I said, "Good deal, man." He said, "But let me tell you something. You are one smart son of a bitch." It was when that guy pissed on you and you did not react. He said, "Do you know who his attorney is?" I said, "I don't have a clue. I don't know him." He said, "His attorney is named David Daniels." He said, "I understand you guys have a beef." And I said, "Yeah, I've been to court 7 times. I've 10 years of my life." Like, I was just going through all of the hell that had happened with David Daniels. David hated me. And so I fired David. I had fired David from the show. And I said, "You're not going to be on that stage Saturday. We're opening for Little Richard at the annual festival." And David said, "Nothing will stop me from being on that stage. The city hired me for the band. You didn't." I said, "I own the copyrights to Double Trouble. You don't. I created this show. You're fired," you know? And he wasn't. He was not on that stage. I got out of jail the day before, and I told Jack within seconds, I said, "Jack, you didn't sit in that cell with me. I sat there and got pissed on by a damn total stranger." And I said, I wanted to knock him out. And I said, I had to sit there and take it and with a smile. And I said, I knew in my mind what was happening, but I didn't know David was involved. So for years, David Daniels, Everett Dusky, Steve Holland, all of these people gang stalked me, set up for me to fail. They would call venues and say, he has a criminal history. Call the Tupelo Lee County Sheriff's Department and ask the sheriff, tell them I told you to call. This information was given to me when I asked for free. They enjoyed telling me. If you hire Kevin Curtis, there's no telling what's going to happen. He's bipolar. He gets off his meds and does crazy things. My whole entire life, more than 1,500 live shows under my belt. I have never been canceled, never been fired, never a show, a venue, a bad word about me. 100% 5-star reviews on every single show I was ever hired for. If you log into gigsalad.com, the world's largest talent booking agency today, right now, and type in, hopefully it's changed. I called the moderator 2 weeks ago and said, could you please go back to Kevin Curtis? I'm okay with my real name now that I have a Netflix docuseries under me. I was offered $250,000 for my book in the last 2 months by HarperCollins Book Publishing. A ghostwriter that's very famous, that has worked with John McAfee, the guy from Oxford, Mississippi, that writes all the novels, that used to be an attorney, John Grisham. Worked with him, 5 others, big names. Well, he called me up on the phone. He said, look, I want to be your ghostwriter. I just want to have my picture on the cover of your book. I want my name on the cover, and I want 30% of the proceeds. He knew for a fact this is going to be a bestseller before he even called me. And then I started thinking, I said, sir, ghost writer means you remain anonymous. That's what a ghost writer is.
That's the problem with having your picture on the cover.
Yeah. I've never heard of I don't know you. I've just Googled you and found out you worked with Netflix 3 months ago, and you worked with the John McAfee story. And he seemed like a really nice guy, and he was really relatable to my story. He said, you're not a book writer. I went to college for this. I've published, I've got 7 Amazon books, bestsellers. I said, I respect that, but let me talk to my agent in Los Angeles and let me bat around this a little bit. I'll get back with you. And I talked to my agent, and I even called Kurt Russell's nephew, Mac. And they said, no, don't go with this. They said, we've already been offered several big offers from people. Even major motion picture producers and directors have called us, and we've been negotiating. Just stand down on any book offer. So that's what I'm doing. I'm standing down. Obviously, they produced exactly what they promised me 4 years ago when the phone rang and he said, hey, I'm Dave. And I work with these different people. I produced 7 television shows, hit television shows. And he threw them the names. I Googled it. It panned out. And he made promises. And every promise he made, he came through with it. So that's where I am with it. I'm going to trust him and his vision for me, because like I told him when he called me, I said, man, I just sing. I impersonate people. I make people laugh. I'm working on a comedy routine. I'm going to go to New York, Chicago, and LA in 2025. I'm going to I've already contacted the Whiskey A Go-Go in LA, talked to them on the phone. Their booking manager called me back. He said, we can get this going. Give us your agent's phone number, and this is how much we'll charge at the door. We got to make sure we advertise right, bring in the right kind of crowd, and this will be good for you, good for us. And so that is in the midst. I'm still getting text messages on my phone from people at Whiskey A Go-Go that are very intrigued with my show. But I want to do the right kind of show. I've got to have the right band behind me. my show is quick. Like I come out as Buddy Holly, and a minute and 50 seconds later, I'm Roy Orbison, and then I'm Johnny Cash, and then I'm Elvis Presley, and I jump behind a curtain and come back with a wig, and I'm 30 different characters within an hour and a half, and you've got to have your cardio up to par and to keep up with my show. I have women coming up to me soaking wet with sweat, going, "Woo! Oh, I'm just so hot, tired. I'm just watching you. Oh, woo, God, I just can't." That's exactly that's the truth of the matter.
Not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, I don't break a sweat. They came to me on Netflix, producer, after I did the $50,000 show, Double Trouble, which was the last show my brother and I will ever do. You'll never see us together again. And my brother agreed to do this only because of the documentary, and that it would put him out there worldwide. And listen, he's been booked solid every week. He's out there. He went to Hattiesburg.
Kings of Tupelo?
Oh, since the release. Yeah. Oh, he's upped his money scale. He makes more money doing it. Wow. He's doubled his profits, because it says featured in the Kings of Tupelo, Jack Curtis, one of the Kings of Tupelo, featured the brother of Kevin Curtis. I've had one booking, and they canceled on the day of the show. $750.
You were telling me about that. Yeah, you were telling me about that. You sent me an email last night about that.
45-minute gig. 45 minutes away from this house, and I drive up. I called them and I said, yeah, the show was in 3 hours. I never asked you about doing a sound check. I would like to walk in. It'll take me 15 minutes to set up, and I would like to do a 30-second sound check. When is the best time and place? Just let me know what door to walk in. This is what I do. I like to get a picture in my mind. How big is the place? I've already Googled the building. I know the layout. I see where the auditorium, where everybody eats, the tables, the chairs, the stage. They answer the phone and go, "Oh, I'm sorry to inform you. I'm sorry I forgot to call, but one of our leaders watched the documentary the night before last, and they feel that you're too controversial for our insurance group."
Wow.
And we're talking like 800 people. Right. And the lady that booked me, she might be fired now. There's a lot of people that's been terminated that chose to go with KC. And I look back, there's 3 attorneys that took me on. They've been disbarred and went to prison. There's 3 people that committed suicide that are involved in my story. David Lee Daniels, on my mother's birthday, while my brother and I are setting up the speakers to give my mother the best show of her life. I was there to sing every song my mother loved her whole life, every country song, Marty Robbins, Gene Watson, Conway Twitty, and I did. And I'm singing my ass off, and my brother walks up to me an hour and a half into the singing part before the cake is given, and Jack says, "You're not going to believe this, but David Daniels killed himself today at his house." Within an hour, a woman sent me a video of him doing it from her doorbell camera. And it shows Sheriff Jim Johnson walking up to all the neighbors and pushing them away and telling them, get back. And we want to get every video from every doorbell cam, every surveillance. It was in a nice neighborhood. Wow. And I predicted this.
Am I inaccurate on this? So you're talking about David Daniels, right? Now, was this the assistant DA?
The one in the documentary. He's one of the Kings of Tupelo.
Isn't he in they present this last show, Double Trouble, right? With you and your brother and everyone sitting in the audience. It was in the documentary, right? Was he not in there?
Yeah.
So they're showing a happy ending for everybody all the way around, and he commits suicide after this?
Yes, but if you read my book, you'll know why. And I don't want to give too much away about
Right.
Because they're talking a major motion picture. Stuart Rosenthal in Los Angeles, California, called me on the phone and offered me a contract for 2% royalties for the rest of my life for a major motion picture. I signed the contract, and my attorney signed the contract. Well, all of a sudden, Stuart Rosenthal from Beverly Hills, California, calls me after 6 weeks, and he says, "We have a problem. Your attorneys have said they want to take something out of the contract and add something where they get a percentage of the royalties, and we've never done that. And for us to offer you 2% net gross royalty, we're doing that to be nice, Mr. Curtis." Right. He said, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of my clients. Sylvester Stallone, Eddie Murphy. I'm just dropping a few names for you, Mr. Curtis, but Leonardo DiCaprio, we gave 4.2% net gross royalty on a film that he did last year, and he's an A-list actor. You're a singer from Mississippi that involved in a controversial story with body parts. What I'm saying to you is you're very fortunate that we're working with you to even give you, because they were going to give me a lump sum of $100,000 just up front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, Wells Tower, who did the GQ magazine, he set that up. He set that all up, and he was going to work with another screenplay writer. They had already written 6 chapters to the screenplay that was to become a major motion picture. That all got shot to hell. So it shows a happy ending. David Daniels, the truth caught up with him. He pulled a gun on me, a 9mm Beretta hair trigger.
In front of your wife and child too, didn't he?
2 sons, 7 and 9-year-old sons. I'm holding a Baskin Robbins ice cream cone in my hand. My children had just finished their ice cream 2 blocks down the road from where practice is. My brother's inside practicing with David Lee Daniels, the drummer, the keyboard player, the whole band. My wife is there, the backup singer. I got her into the business. I asked Jack, can she be your backup singer? Like when she's not being my teddy bear girl, she's got a good alto voice. She could do it. Mm-hmm. And he liked how she sounded with him. So yeah, he inducted her into his portion of our show, Double Trouble. Well, David Daniels flirted with my wife in front of me. Like, he did this, like, I don't know why he did this. Yeah. It was really rude, not a gentleman. But as a professional that I am, I overlooked it. During all the practice sessions, he would grab a beer and say, "Hey, you want a beer?" And he would take a swig of it, make sure it's cold for her, and then hand it to her. And I thought, well, that's not cool. And so the last practice session, it was for my brother on a Tuesday night, May 23rd, 9:30 p.m. I leave the ice cream shop, and I'm bringing the baseball cleats and baseball bat and glove, because my son had t-ball and baseball, other one had baseball practice the next day, and we had conflicts with our schedule, and that's the only reason I stopped by to put that in her car. And so I'm in my van, my work van. She's in her car. I'm good. You take the kids home. I'm going to go on and clean some buildings. Well, David Lee Daniels and Laura are outside, and she's bent over in her little tiny skirt, and he's looking at her panties and holding his cell phone. I don't know if he was taking pictures of her or what, but I caught it. And I just drove up with the window down, and I'm right behind Laura, and I said, "What are y'all doing? Where's the band? Where's Jack?" "Oh, they're inside. We just come out for a break." I go, "Oh, is practice over?" "Well, I think so. We may do one more song. I don't think so, though." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And Laura's like, oh, I was just about to give him my phone number. He was going to call me. He asked me would I come up and watch his band play at the Western Connection. Well, the Western Connection is where I used to sing. It was the largest club in Northeast Mississippi until Jimmy Shelton, a local big lawyer in Tupelo, bought another giant factory and turned it into the largest dance club in Northeast Mississippi. He hired me to do the grand opening, and I played there for 2 years every Friday and Saturday night. Well, the Western Connection coincidentally gets bought by Steve Holland and becomes the largest funeral home in Northeast Mississippi. You can't make this up, guys.
You're kidding. No way.
That's a fact.
Crazy.
That's a fact.
Wow. That's
so
unbelievable.
Steve Holland now owns the Western Connection, where David Daniels played for years. And I'm like, you're giving my wife your telephone number? Like, that's not going to happen. No, she's not going to come see you play your little guitar. And then it starts getting, the tension starts to raise. So I park the van and I get out and I leave my 2 boys in the front seat. And I walk up to him with my ice cream cone, and there's a 6-pack of beer sitting there. So he's drinking a beer. Laura's got a beer. I just drop the ice cream cone, pick up one of the beers, and I'm not a beer drinker. I hadn't drank beer 30 years. I can't even stand the taste of it. Popped open a beer. I don't know. I guess it was just a kind of a nervous habit, to be honest. I said that in court. And he was holding the beer. She's holding the beer. I'm holding the beer. So I took a swig of the beer, took one drink. And I said, David, you're out here. I've seen you flirt with my wife so many times. And keep in mind, I didn't know he was an attorney. I didn't know he was an assistant DA. All I knew is he was a rhythm guitar player and that he was kind of sucky at it. So that night I chose to tell him, I went back and looked at some of the video and audio that I've made of us in practice sessions, and I looked at last year's performance, and you are on the wrong notes in 8 of my songs, and it looks really like you're trying to screw me up on stage. Is that true, David? And he said, "Fuck you, Kevin." And I go, "Really? Fuck me." I said, "Fuck you, David." And then I took one more swig of the beer, and I held on to it. He told everyone in court, Kevin picked up a beer bottle and changed his grip and came at me. So I saw that as a weapon, and I was only going to defend my life and pull out my 9mm that I often kept with me because I'm an attorney. Now, even my wife testified in court. Now, Kevin still took one sip after it was all over, and Jack and the Pat Raspberry of the Convention and Visitor Bureau, she pulled up in her PT Cruiser, saw the gun on the ground and jumped out. "Why is there a gun? Why are your hands up in the air, Kevin?" And I'm like, "You just saved my life." And I was trembling and my hands were shaking. I'm not a shaker. I never shake. I'm calm like a doctor. And I put my hands down. I'd been holding them up for like 7-8 minutes saying, "Don't kill me in front of my kids." But he started screaming at me about body parts and severed head. I didn't bring it up, guys. I never instigated that. He said, "Everybody knows you're crazy. I've seen all your crap on the internet about the severed head, the North Mississippi Medical Center. You're lucky to be alive. You got a big fat mouth that needs to be shut." I said, "Well, you're not going to shut it." And I said, and I was like Trump, "You're fired. You're fired. You're incredibly terrible. You're fired."
That was a pretty good impersonation.
Totally. I totally fired him in front. It hurt his ego. He was like, "Fired? You can't fire me."
Right.
Nobody fires me. He said, "I'm going to be on that stage Saturday. If anybody gets fired, it'll be you." And I said,
Right.
I created this show. And so I said, "David, why don't we walk back behind this metal building and let me teach you a lesson that your father failed to teach you?" And then I gave him that smile. And my wife said, "David, when he gives you that smile, don't do it." That's the death stare smile. He said, "Kevin will annihilate you. He will change." I've seen him when some guys attacked him after a show one time at a club. Kevin jumped up on top of a van, and it was like this martial arts, and he was kicking and punching, and then he jumped down in the dirt and fought him. And David just immediately backed up. Well, first he pushed me backwards to get his, so he could reach down for his pistol, and he pulled it out. I mean, that guy put that gun on my head, and that was because I crushed his ego. I fired it in front of the lady that he'd been trying to flirt with and sleep with. David was a ladies' man. He was a player. No, it doesn't matter when he was married. He was a cheater. And I had blogs out about cheaters. I couldn't stand liars and cheaters. I mean, I would talk about that fake ass reality show, The Cheaters. I say, let's get real. Talk to KC. We're going to talk about how you really deal with cheaters. I've got the answers. And so I'd put blogs out and help women with their husbands that's cheating. And David hated me. And it was after I filed a police report on aggravated assault with a deadly weapon that I found out he was assistant DA. So 10 police officers show up at my house 3 days after I pressed charges against him. And my brother called me the day before and he said, "You didn't press charges against David Lee Daniels, did you?" I said, "Hell yeah, I did. That man almost killed me in front of Brown and Kennedy."
Yeah.
Like, they almost lost their father. I mean, the gun was on my forehead. His hand was on the trigger. It was engaged, cocked. I said, "Jack, it's a miracle." He said, "Yeah, David called me." And he said he had his hand on the trigger and he remembered pulling it. And I go, "Are you kidding me? Did you record that?" And he goes, "No, Kevin, I don't record conversations like you." And so you got this high profile assistant district attorney, been there, worked 22 years working there. Everybody knows. He put Patrick Presley in Parchman Prison. He accidentally had a road accident. I think a child died, maybe 2 people died, but he swerved over on the wrong side of the road, hit the car. David Lee Daniels invented, because he hated the Presleys. And the reason he hated the Presleys, and this is in my book, I'm giving my whole damn book away, but Harold Ray Presley arrested David Lee Daniels' fiance, Nikki, for DUI, and David came up into the jail. Wow. Yeah. And David, this is like 2002, right before the 2003 festival. So this was it. I found out this by interviewing Harold Ray Presley's widow, Charlene Presley. And she was writing a book at the time about the death of her son, Patrick. Now, Harold Ray Presley is Elvis Presley's first cousin. I met Harold Ray Presley 3 weeks before he died. He gave me some advice, and I took it, and it worked. And I said, "Man, you're a genius." Walked into his office, saw all his Elvis memorabilia. Elvis had given him rings and gifts, plaques, and a gold record. And it was always cool. And I was like, "What a pleasure meeting you, sir." I walk out. 3 weeks later, he's murdered. And it was a cover-up, a murder cover-up. And the files, the court was sent to Greenville, Mississippi, so nobody in Northeast Mississippi could hear about it or know about it. They're not going to drive 3.5 hours. So they took it off and had the trials in Greenville, Mississippi. And then they had the Secret Service and FBI seal the entire records from the trial. So it's like 50 years until you can open the files. I'm sorry, but that's a cover-up. Yep. So Harold Ray Presley was shot like 6 times. Well, David Lee Daniels hated Harold Ray Presley because when David Daniels got to the jail, he said, "Have you got my fiance locked up?" And he said, "You damn right I do." And he put his finger in his face. This is coming from his widow. This is his widow, married to him for like 30 years with 3 children. And he said, "I'm David Daniels. I'm the assistant district attorney in this whole area in all 7 counties. Do you know who I am?" And he goes, "I know exactly who you are, but I don't give a damn who you are. She's drunk driving, endangering the lives of people. She's going to stay in jail, and you can get the hell out of my office." And he pushed him physically out of his office. That created a lifelong, he was scorned. He hated all the Presleys. So how could he hurt the Presleys? Start stalking and harassing and interrogating and trying to get them all in jail, all in prison. David Lee Daniels invented a law that had never been talked about or heard of in the state of Mississippi called the heart bereavement or think law. In the driving, they were saying that he purposely swerved lanes because he was probably angry about something that happened in his life and hit that car. He was being negligent. And by using the heart bereavement, and if I'm pronouncing it wrong, bereavement, I apologize. But if you Google it, Charlene Presley, Patrick Presley, suicide at Parchman Prison. I don't think it was a suicide at all. I think he was killed. It was inside. And David Lee Daniels put a hold on him at Parchman. I and Charlene wrote a letter to Ronnie Musgrove, who was the governor of Mississippi at the time, back in 2002. And we said, please, sir, with all due respect, please remove Patrick Presley from the D block cell in open population at Parchman because his father is related to Elvis Presley. He carries the Presley name, and being the son of law enforcement that has put multiple people behind bars in that prison, they are going to retaliate against him, and his life is in danger. We wrote that letter, mailed it, sent it. He wrote a respond. We are moving Patrick Presley at the moment. We are in the process. Come Friday, everything happens on a Friday. I was arrested 22 times on a Friday after 5. Everything shuts down after 5 on Friday. That's when you can't call the lawyers.
Yep.
You stuck to get that jab by that little blade that they made with a toothbrush and a piece of metal that fell off a chair. A shank, they call it. But so he had that vendetta against the Presley name. Who do you think he thought about, David Daniels, when he just looked at me? Who pops into your mind?
Elvis.
Sideburns.
Yeah.
I've had sideburns since the 7th grade. My mother wouldn't let me. I would calm my hair down and make it even look fuller. I was doing shows at the age of 10. So literally, I have never shaved my sideburns off. You know, I've grown a beard. I just shaved a full beard off a few days ago. But David Lee Daniels looked at me and he thought about the Presleys. He knew that I knew Harold Ray and I knew Charlene. I had went to Charlene's house. We had talked about the Presley case. She gave me the whole file. He knew I was going to start showing up for court hearings. I would stay at Charlene Presley's house till 3 a.m, going through file after file. We created a street justice team with 12 people, and we would go door to door knocking with affidavits. I still have the affidavit copies now to this day. And it would say, it would have a blank, I and your name, sign your name, have been harassed by Tupelo police. I have been gang stalked. I have been falsely arrested. I was beaten down by 3 police officers in Lee County. I and Charlene and all these other people, door to door, 2 or 3 years. Oh, no, it was all the way up until 2008. I believe that's when we started, expanding and disbanding our group, our street team group. We would meet at churches, meet at Vietnam, a bingo hall owned by Jimmy Doug Shelton, high-profile legal attorney. He's the first attorney to sue the hospital in Tupelo and win $1 million back in 1979. The same year, Kurt Russell portrayed Elvis on the ABC TV special Elvis. And then Kurt Russell, his nephews, would one day produce a direct My Life story on Netflix, Kings of Tupelo. Things don't just happen. It's the journey. This was all meant to be. It's part of the journey.
Right. Sorry, I think I lost you guys there for a second. And I do
It's a lot.
apologize. We are starting to, hey, no problem. And you know what? We need to get you back to maybe talk about some other things that we didn't get to wrap up in this episode. You've been an incredible guest. Everybody, this has been Paul Kevin Curtis with Common X Podcast with Jared and Ian. Do check out his documentary, The Kings of Tupelo, Southern saga on Netflix. And when did you think that the book was going to be released? Your book, Missing Pieces?
It would be pushing it to say this year, because so much is happening with the potential of a film for a major motion picture. And my agent, he's in control of, does the book come out before the film or after? So we are talking, and it's not negotiations. It's just
right.
Super nice guy. He's been an agent for many people. I mean, he pitched my story to Jason Bateman. He called me up one day and he said, the guy on Cheers, Woody Harrelson. He said, Woody Harrelson just walked into the Netflix studio with your reel that he's made, and he wants to direct your story, your film. I'm like, wow. And so
that's incredible.
All throughout Hollywood, my story was getting peppered around. And Woody Harrelson's father went to prison for life for the murder of a federal judge and somebody else. And Woody Harrelson has stood firm that he was framed. So I think that's what grabbed his heartstrings about my story. Plus, he likes Elvis.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I don't know, but I've been wanting to publish my book for so long, and the fact that the Secret Service and the FBI took my book and never returned it really pisses me off.
Oh,
I had to go looking online for chapters that I had leaked. I had leaked 7 chapters, just peppered them on different platforms just to say, hey, what do you 100 people think in this chat room about my chapters I'm sending you? I'm sending you 4 chapters today, 100% positive. Every person that read the first 4 or 5 chapters would say, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm freaking out. I got to know the ending. What happens to Keith Carter? Oh my God, this family destroyed. You found a severed head. Your life has been threatened. Your home burned down. 7 home invasions. Your dog was murdered. You're being harassed by gang stalkers. Like, I mean, this book, I'm not being cocky. I'm very confident that it's going to be a bestseller overnight. And I'm so thankful to Netflix. I'm thankful to people like you. Like I said, you're the second platform that I've agreed to accept an interview with. And I'm very picky.
And we appreciate it too. We do. We
I turned down 300 people, but I looked at you guys, and you can see in your eyes, in your demeanor, you can just tell you're the real deal, and you're just looking for the facts and, trying to make it all. Even watching the Kings of Tupelo, you can't make it. You can't make it make sense. Right. Like Steve Holland in the audience clapping. I never met the guy in my life, but he's at my show on the 3rd or 4th row. And he comes up to me and he shakes my hand and he said, you're one hell of an entertainer. I think you probably got the best voice I've ever heard. And I said, well, thank you. Thank you very much. and then Mac, Kurt Russell's nephew, who looks just like Kurt Russell, looks at him and he said, get the camera. And they go, Mr. Holland, why didn't you pass Kevin Curtis's House bill resolution to regulate organ harvesting in Mississippi? Right. And he goes, and he bowed up and he smiled real big. And he said, I'll tell you why, by God. Mm-hmm. And he said, because I did some digging, and when I saw he wasn't a constituent of mine, I said, to hell with him.
Thanks, Boss Hog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yosemite Sam on everybody. Yeah.
He has slandered me to hell and back all these years. I just now started telling people how I feel about him on camera, because I never had an opinion on camera or on the internet about him. I didn't trash him and call him Boss Hog until he made me. He was in opposition of me. I only confronted him with a House bill resolution because Senator Roger Wicker told me he's the guy to pass your. He's the guy to sponsor it. I'm not.
Yeah. What's so ironic about that too, and I'm sure you know this, Casey, but just from someone looking from the outside looking in, that's watched the documentary, that's gone through it. I mean, it's just absolutely captivated me. I mean, when you have a a crisis like that in America where, people are happily donating organs and then people withdraw that back because they don't know about the accountability. They don't know if there's a document system or if this is, something that's going to continue on. They don't know if their organs are going to be harvested, for fuck's sakes. But what I don't understand about Mr. Holland is his position is that he's on the side of protecting, charitable organ donating and doing it right and all this other stuff. So why wouldn't he support something, your legislation?
Bingo.
Why would he not? That doesn't make any sense at all. And I felt that he, I felt that he was just bullshitting us in the Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
And Mr. Holland, I don't know you. I just, and I don't mean to offend Mr. Holland, but the argument looked like it was just political. But if he really wants to help people and get organs to people, then why wouldn't he support a bill that prevents black market organ trading? I mean, and
close that door. And my attorney that I fired in 2017, I fired her. She would cuss me. She would scream at me. And then she would take me by the arms and say, Kevin, I love you. Now, I'm not loving you like your ex-wife, Laura, but I love you. You are wonderful. And I'm like, you just cursed me out and screamed at the top of your lungs, and now you love me? Like, maybe you're bipolar,
Yeah.
And so I found out that her father worked for 20 years for the North Mississippi Medical Center in the blood donation group, like in the unit of blood donations. So she looked me right in the eye in 2014 and said, I have no connection with the hospital, never known anybody that worked there. All I did was Google her father's name, and it said retired from the North Mississippi Medical Center, 20-something years in the blood donor group. Like, oh my God, you're a liar. So I fired her. And but I'm so thankful that here at the end, you brought that up because it's the most important thing. She asked me when I fired her, why are you so gung-ho about this whole organ donation black market? What do you have to prove? What business is it? And she got mad. She got angry with me. And she said, I'm a donor. And I said, well, let me tell you why I opted out as a donor and why I've asked every friend, every family member to opt out of it forever. Let me tell you why. She goes, why? I said, because it is unregulated worldwide. And when you have a industry, an entity like organ donation, procurement of bones, skin, tissue, organs, there is a back door that is open, a swinging, revolving door for funeral homeowners, funeral home directors, doctors, rabbis, politicians, you name it. I've spoken with all of them, and I've had inside information sent to me by sons and daughters, former workers of funeral homes and physicians' offices that said, I've got to tell you something off the record. If you promise me you're not recording me, Mr. Curtis, this is what I saw 10 years ago. This is what I have documented 20 years ago. My father was involved in this, and we would fly out of the country, and there would be a crate of severed heads, and there would be children's body parts. And I asked, and my father said, don't ever ask. When I take you on these vacations, don't look in anything and don't ask questions. And so I never did again, but my father passed away 6 months ago, and I found some things on a flash drive, and I'm debating, do I send it to KC? It solidifies everything you're saying in the Kings of Tupelo, KC. The transactions, how much was paid for a bone, this kind of bone, femur bone, the amounts are there, the transactions, the names, the politicians, they had diplomatic immunity, so they would cross borders with briefcases, coolers, crates, and boxes. And I'm like, this is the holy grail of all my years of research. Please mail me the flash drive. And all of this is happening right now. As we speak, I'm in the process of getting lots of information and witnesses by the masses of reaching out to me and saying, my uncle, my aunt, my father, my mother, they were involved. They worked at a funeral home. Well, here's the thing. Why are you opposing a House bill resolution that I created? I'm a high school dropout. I went to business college for 6 months for tourism, hotel management, travel and tourism. That's where I learned to work on the PARS computer and the Sabre 2 computer. That's the only training I have, only kind of college education I have. I'm a high school dropout with a GED. Whenever I would call these people high up in the business and say, I'm trying to get a bill sponsored to save millions of lives, a person I won't name with a PhD said to me, Mr. Curtis, what education do you have? I said, well, I'm a high school dropout with a GED. Why do you ask? And you think you can call Congress in Washington, D.C. and ask about sponsoring a House bill resolution to save millions of lives? Who the hell do you think you are? And hung up on me. Then she called me back 10 minutes later, and I recorded the conversation. And she said, I'm sorry for getting upset. I'm sorry for hanging up on you, Mr. Curtis. But with all due respect, she said, I think you need mental help. And that's all I have to say. You have a good day. And she hung up. So I started researching. Wow. Within 10 minutes, I found out she was on the board of directors at the North Mississippi Medical Center. And she works in Washington, D.C., and she was in court April the 19th when I was being prosecuted for trying to murder the president of the United States.
That's unreal.
But that's the truth. And I have the whole CD of the entire 2-day court hearings for 5-7 hours on record on CDs. I gave them to Netflix. They gave them back. It's all there. The Homeland Security and FBI stood up on the witness stand under oath and said, we are 100% sure that Paul Kevin Curtis sent the poison to kill Obama, Senator Wicker, and Sadie Holland. We are 100% sure. The next day, we're working on forensics with the computers. We're going to find out. And I kept saying, I've been framed, like that Cheech and Chong song. I was framed, dude.
Yeah.
You like my hat?
Yeah.
Female body inspector.
All right, buddy.
You know what I say? I'm a fur baby investigator.
Nice.
Hey,
it's been our pleasure to have you on.
I've rescued 86 cats and 28 dogs in the last 4 years and found homes for them. So that's my claim to fame.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great, man.
It was a pleasure talking to both of you, meeting you like this, and I hope to speak with you again someday.
Oh yeah,
all
definitely.
right, buddy. We'll do. Keep in touch.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you, Casey.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm KC, and I approve this interview.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week, and hopefully from, content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support. And we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.